Hello everybody, you love an intro, I love an intro, we all love an intro, and this for some reason is the intro to episode 49 of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast, a Warhammer 40,000 podcast made, produced, developed and now delivered to you, the fine people from all around the world, although most notably in Denmark according to our analytics, although also the UK. Not so good in America, I'm noticing. The Americans don't like us very much. Which is reasonable. I imagine this doesn't necessarily resonate with them overly. But, you know, for those Americans who are the exceptions to the rule, thank you for your love and support. Maybe tell some of your friends, because, you know, you're kind of where the money's at, and we need those numbers. Anyway, getting on with the show, this is episode 49, almost 50. Ooh. And I'm joined as ever by my good buddy Phil. How's it going, Phil?
I'm good, thanks. I think maybe we need to be the Beatles and break America.
You think we need to break America? I'm quite happy in our local success, as it were. You know, without wanting to sound big-headed or crazy, quite a few times in the last couple of weeks, we've been the #1 40k podcast in all of the UK.
Ooh.
I know, that's an accolade. I mean, it means, obviously, that British people have very low standards, or we're actually really good at what we do.
Well, it could be both.
Exactly. I mean, we must be pretty good, because we keep appearing on stuff. I mean, between you and Joe, I mean, it's a nightmare to get you to do this these days.
I know, we're too busy for you.
Well, exactly. Joe's here as well, by the way, everybody. Joe Katona!
Hello.
How's it going, Joe Katona?
All right, always doing collabs, me.
Well, clearly, mate, clearly. It's quite an exciting time for you. Today is not only the recording day of episode 49 of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast, but it's the launch of that other podcast you've appeared on, The Real Space Raiders. Isn't that right, Joe?
I know, we are the Real Space Raiders Crisps.
The Real Space Raiders Crisps. So if you really, really love listening to Joe, and you fancy listening to a worse version of him, check out The Real Space Raiders. Do you feel like that's an accurate description, Joe?
There's 4 of us on that one, so I get less airtime.
That's it.
They're like, Joe, you've got your own stuff, so shush now.
I mean,
the people will love it.
How do you feel it's going to work out for the first episode? Obviously, you've listened to it, critiqued it, had a lot of opinions on it.
Well, you know me, always listening to the podcasts that I'm in.
Always.
Relentlessly.
Of course.
I obviously haven't listened to it.
Oh my God, what a shocker.
I've heard good things.
I mean, have you? Because you only really found out it existed a minute ago when I told you it did.
Oh no, I've been told that it had gone live today.
Oh, wow, that's something. So Paulie said good things about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Paulie told me that it was good.
To be fair, I'm being a bit... This internal joke's starting to seem a bit rude to poor old Paulie and the guys over Real Space Raiders. It's actually seemingly quite a nice first edition of the podcast. So, yeah, if you're interested in Drakari and you love our boy Joe, why not check it out? There you go. That's my obligatory plug. Although, more than they give us, it's fair to say. Wouldn't you say, Joe?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure they plugged us.
I don't know, mate. It always feels like a one-way street with these things.
I don't know. It's because like now we're like the tabletop tactics. So they're like people use us now to get famous.
Is that how it is? You see,
I think that would be a big mistake if that was the case. Although saying that, I got to appear on not my own podcast.
Oh, hang on, he's branching out.
Week. Yes, it's the was it 2 shovels, one plank?
Yes.
No, it's I got asked to guest appear on 40k Today. Which is like a daily podcast. So I'm on today's episode, so 7th of May?
Thursday, the 7th of May, yeah.
Yeah, basically, mostly talking about my new magnetic storage case that I got. Because the guy had seen me demonstrate it by hanging it upside down and giving it a shake. And he was like, I want to talk to you about cases.
You are the foremost expert on magnetism when it comes to Warhammer 40,000, Phil.
Yeah,
I do like to magnetise stuff. That's true.
He does.
I thought you were talking about his just smouldering sexuality.
Well, that's also true.
Well, that is also a thing. Sure.
Although, I don't know if you see this, Joe, but his missus just posted a picture on Facebook celebrating something or other, and Phil appears in the corner. He looks like he hasn't seen the outside world for years. It's like,
well, I haven't.
Does he? Do you look like
freelancer?
Do you look like Tom Hanks in Shipwreck? Like...
Pretty much. The problem was I was really desperate for a haircut before lockdown, and I was like, I'll go tomorrow. And then basically lockdown happened, and I was like, oh, Oh dear, I'm a bit stuck now. So I'm basically twice as badly needing a haircut as probably most people.
I don't necessarily think it was the hair though, Phil. It was
Is it the wild beard?
No, not even the beard. It was just the look of despair.
Yeah.
Well, that's because I spent an entire day celebrating a 13-year-old's 13th birthday. So that's what probably caused.
Is that what it was?
What happens at an isolation birthday party?
Well, I mean, all sorts.
Oh, really?
Or not a lot. No, I did a custom-made treasure hunt / puzzles around the house.
Oh, that's
Were they
cool.
all
She
were they all
enjoyed.
freak based? Was it just you like I've hidden 37 shovels in this Oxford house? Now go and find.
I think I might have to do that one next time because I'm running out of ideas. No, this one was all cat-based, so I did lots of drawings of cats on playing cards, like blank playing cards.
You didn't hide live cats around the house then?
No, there's enough of them as it is already.
Yeah.
It is true. Phil is becoming the crazy cat lady as he gets older.
Yeah.
Well,
Although
we do have like a stray cat that has befriended us that just sort of lives in our garden now and eats our food.
I have one of those too. He's called Joe.
Can you call the cat Joe? Just so that everyone has one.
No, I've called him Wilson.
Wilson. Wilson's quite good for the whole kind of
if
shipwreck
there's
vibe.
another one, well, that's true. Yeah, if there's another stray cat, then we call it Joe.
Thank you.
Is it named after Wilson Fisk?
The king.
No.
Yeah.
I don't imagine. I imagine he wasn't thinking of Wilson Fisk.
Well,
the
at the rate he's eating, he probably will be because he is chonking up.
I mean,
Sure.
to be fair to Joe, he smells like a cat and is covered in cat hairs. Therefore, it can be very easy to confuse him with a cat sometimes, don't you think?
Yeah. I'm
That's
often found ferreting through people's bins in the dark.
Exactly. And pooing in a tray.
Yeah. If there's a tray, that's it.
That's it.
It's having it.
Happy as Larry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good time to be alive, isn't it, everybody? Scared for our lives, hidden away.
Yeah. Hidden away, hiding from Joes in bins.
Exactly. Befriending stray cats.
And you wonder why the Americans don't like us.
It's true. It's true.
Well, maybe we should. It's possums they have over there, isn't it? Or and raccoons, according to television. That's what the television tells me.
Is that what you're saying there, Joe? We need to get more onto the local wildlife to entice them into watching us or listening
Maybe
to us.
that's what we should have, like a wildlife episode.
What, specifically based on creatures from America?
Yes.
So we can talk more about buffaloes and so on.
100%. And bison.
And bison, yes, and raccoons and whatever animals are they famous for?
Is it eagle,
Bears.
the bald
Ooh,
one,
the bald eagle, yes,
and the hairy one, I guess.
indeed. I mean, I don't want to sort of sound desperate when I start throwing out statistics like that. I just sort of, I've been diving into the numbers a bit lately, which is why I can throw out weird sort of nebulous stats like we're the #1 podcast in the UK, which we were kind of technically sometimes. But probably not enough consistently to be really quantified as that. But it's nice to throw out little accolades. Maybe I can send that sound bite to some advertisers and entice them into covering this otherwise pure and wonderful podcast with loads of advertising. I'm sure the fans would love that, wouldn't they?
Could we get it like a sign made? You know, like have like the world's best coffee. We're like #1 podcast
For a very specific period of time.
Yes.
Based on I don't know what chart data that Chartable runs with. I mean, me and Phil were having a conversation about this. We don't even necessarily know what the algorithm is that creates the data.
I don't know. Most awesome.
Because what it tells me, based on our numbers, is that if we were #1, the competitors are getting terrible results. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Or we've just become more famous. You know, they've become sluggish in their old age.
Indeed. Phil, is that you with all the birds in the background?
I think it's Joe, actually.
Joe, are you surrounded by wildlife?
Yes. I've just got the window open, and there's a bunch of birds have decided to live in the overgrowing hedges outside my house.
The very cheek of them all, eh? The very cheek. Or have they moved into
Tell
your
them you're
ceiling?
recording a podcast. Get them to shut up.
We'll get them on. I'll become like the Bill Oddie of the channel.
We're going to seem as desperate as 40k today, getting Phil on to talk about magnets. To get the birds in to talk about. What's your opinion on magnets, birds?
It's like I heard that It was on Radio 2 when a woman interviewed like the UK's oldest tree.
Was that one of those women who like fell in love with the tree and married it or something?
I wasn't listening to it properly. I think I heard woman interviewing a tree, and I was like, "Well, this sounds like quality radio." Off.
To be fair though, Phil, you did a very good job on there, mate. I thought it was a very enjoyable little 15-minute chunk of information. I have to admit, I didn't listen to the bloke from Goonhammer before, so, you know, apologies to him. I only had an invested interest in listening to your bit, but I thought you came off well, mate. Came across good.
No, fair enough. I had to try and resist from waffling on, because I basically told him that we do like a 3-4 hour long podcast, so trying to do a 10-minute segment would be quite difficult.
It would be quite difficult. I mean, it's difficult enough for us to get a good 10-minute intro going, let alone a 10-minute entire segment. That's unheard of for us.
Yeah. Is this your segue?
No, God, no. I'm just I'm happy.
We're not done yet.
Yeah, exactly. We're far from over.
Did you talk about the science of magnets and how, like the polar ends and all that stuff kind of work?
No, we didn't. He had a case that didn't have any kind of draw system to pull out the trays. So he was saying actually the speed of having magnets wasn't all that efficient because he sort of like trying to reach into the back of the case to pull models out wasn't very good.
Didn't Tim did he turn his GW case into a magnet case?
Ooh, I think so. I know a few people have done that. So that's like the super cheap option where you just either get they're called really useful boxes or a GW case and you just like bolt on or Velcro on a steel sheet. But it's not the most efficient use of its space. I think that's the problem with those ones.
If you would like to hear more of these riveting conversations about magnets, check out 40k today. Anyway, right, moving on. And as you can tell, this quality content, as we keep talking about this being, is obviously being recognised by you, our fans and listeners, because we've had another, everybody, 40k, that's not right, sorry, I was reading the text in it, we've had another 5-star review. There we go, I can do this well. Yes, I know, 5-star reviews, aren't we lovely? So this one comes from Sweden, no less, that's right, the Swedish, you know, and what the Swedish don't know about quality 40k podcasts ain't worth not knowing, or knowing. Is that right? How did I say that?
Ain't worth knowing.
That's the words. Yes, of course. So, let me tell you. Oh, hang on. Now I've got to pronounce this person's name. Oh, goodness. Krister? 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 Christy? Christery? Anyone else want to take a stab at that? No one else can actually see this, can they?
No, because I'll make it worse.
Okay, fine. So, Franzine, which sounds all right for a surname there. Okay, cool. Let's get on with the content. Has since I stumbled upon becoming... Hang on, flip it, let's try this again. Good lord. quality content.
Ad-lib it, mate.
Exactly. Has since I stumbled upon it become my favourite 40k podcast? Oh, has since I stumbled upon it become my favourite 40k podcast? Okay, fine. The grammar was a bit lacking, but has since I stumbled upon it become my favourite 40k podcast? Right, that works. I love to listen to the silliness, rambling, and deep analysis. I'm not entirely sure he's thinking of this podcast, surely. That the guys brings. The podcast has really helped me out of several cases of hobby burnout, and it always gives me smiles, regards. There you go. What a lovely 5-star review that I have seemingly butchered. Apologies with my lack of education and ability to pronounce, I was about to say French names, Swedish names. God, I'm butchering this. Joe, why don't you just say thank you and we can move along?
Thank you, Krister. You are clearly a man of taste, and thank you for listening to us. Although the way you described it does make us feel like you watched another podcast and then just wrote your description on the right one. But if you did in fact mean it, then more the better. Thank you. Keep listening and check us another one and we'll mention you again. Or do one of those like broken down ways of writing a name so we know how to pronounce it properly in future.
A phonetic.
That's the one.
Yes. That would be very helpful, please. Please give us some phonetic spellings so as we can make
we
sense
are,
of things.
We are but simple Englishmen, and our ways of speaking other people's languages are by shouting in that accent, just a little bit louder in English.
Can you do a bit of shouting in a Swedish accent, Joker?
No, because I don't want us to get shut down.
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. I assumed you just sort of channel the old Swedish chef from The Muppet Show.
Or the Huygen, Boygen, Schloigen, Neugen.
Yeah,
one.
there you go. See, I knew you could do it. I knew you had it in you somewhere, mate. It's good.
Anyway. Yeah, we've got a Dutch guy at work called Boris. Yeah. He's literally the nicest people alive. And I often do the Swedish chef to him, and he hates it, obviously, because he's not Swedish. He's in fact Dutch. And but he hasn't punched me yet. So happy days.
That is a considerable plus point.
Yeah.
All right, brilliant. Well, anyway, look, what are we going to talk about on the show today? Let me tell you. On the show today, we've got Adam Shepherd-Jones of 40k Brawl fame to come and talk to us about tournaments in the general sense. So for those who don't know already, we like Adam. He's a local boy. He puts on tournaments in the local area. And as a result...
doesn't give us free tickets, though.
No, he doesn't give us free tickets, that is true. But then has anyone given us free anything ever?
We've got to be at that point now. Or maybe we have to break America first to get free tickets.
That is true. The guy from Mathhammer, the app, he gave me a free version of Mathhammer because he wanted us to advertise Mathhammer. But I couldn't be bothered to respond to his messages, so that fell through.
Oh. You mean we could have been rolling in the money or free apps, but because of that, we don't have it?
I mean, one day, you know, I mean, Phil, you need the money more than I do. Maybe we should make you the treasurer.
No, that's true, and I can just embezzle it all. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, you could do. Although...
I mean, I'd happily just take a free copy of Mathhammer because I go onto his website quite a bit occasionally, so I'll have a look at some stats. So it'd be quite useful.
Phil, he didn't pay us. You don't have to plug it.
Oh, I know.
He's getting a free ad out of us now, Phil.
Well, I'm just saying.
I could have sold that to him.
He's going for the backhander. That's why.
Is that what it is? Exactly. He's trying to get it over.
I'll reach out to him afterwards and get my cut.
Yeah. Beyond the tabletop is open for business. Let's see what we can make.
That quality painting channel really needs a dice app.
It does.
It does.
With like the KOTC stuff, actually, it would have made sense, actually, wouldn't it? Mathhammer is like a...
Well, exactly.
Oh, I've sort of really missed out there, because we could have used them as a... But then it wouldn't have been nearly as controversial, I suppose.
No.
What, because we've already math-hammered the winner? Well, no, you could math-hammer the winner and then play it out to see if he really is the winner.
You could
but then in doing
so,
you might find the flaw in that the statistics of math-hammer doesn't actually play out properly on the tabletop.
Mm.
And then cheat
is not accurate. And cheat with those funny dice, yeah.
Well, that's true. Well, there you go, anyway. But on the topic of the KOTC, or rather... No, hang on. Did I do enough of talking about Adam? Adam's going to come on. He's going to talk about tournaments and stuff, because he's a local boy. He's very nice. And he appears on the show now and again. He was our scorekeeper during the Big Fat Quiz of 2019. So we're going to get him on, because he's involved with all the kind of ITC tournament nonsense, and he knows all the things that people are talking about with regards to what's going to happen when all this COVID stuff goes away or starts to go away, and how, we're going to potentially get back into the business of playing games against each other. So that'll be hopefully really insightful and interesting getting Adam on. Then he's going to stick around because on the topic of the KOTC, which I was talking about earlier, we're going to have Commander Farsight versus Ghazghkull, which should be really, really exciting. And then,
if not guessable.
Well, I mean, it depends who you're rooting for. Who knows? Maybe Farsight will do well.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, the odds aren't really in his favour, are they?
I like how you stitch everyone up into favour Calgar.
What are you talking about? I'm not favouring... Well, by the way, me and Joe still need to get around to that Tabletop Simulator recording. Come on, Joe, you got to do it. Come on, Joe, you're not going to get COVID this way. You can just come on the internet and play a game with me.
I suppose.
What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, and look, by the way, everyone, just if you've stuck with it this far, I'm going to assume that you're a regular listener and a fan and you're looking forward to the content that's about to come up. Obviously, in response to the COVID situation, we took the decision to go weekly. That's something that we've stuck to during the last few weeks. So we've done maybe 4 or 5 episodes on a weekly basis. I hope you can all understand when I say it's a lot of work making that happen. And although we're really happy to do it and we hope you guys have really enjoyed it, our lives collectively are starting to return to a bit more of a normal schedule in some instances. Joe is facing a return to work fairly soon. But also, more than anything, as we're approaching episode 50, we felt like it was the right time to revert to our fortnightly schedule. So for any of you out there who've been enjoying this weekly content, obviously apologies, but hopefully you'll still enjoy listening to us on a fortnightly basis, as it has always been prior to this. Obviously, the great thing is that for episode 50, we'll have a couple weeks and we'll be able to make more of a song and dance of episode 50. Make it a more appropriate milestone, as it should be. But yeah, just want to let you all know that as of this episode, we are now returning to our fortnightly schedule. So you will expect the next episode of Lookout Sir 40k to arrive on Saturday the 23rd of May, and then the 6th of June, and so forth. So with that said, everybody, we're going to get on to the next part of the show. Transitional noise. Woo! And now, in this part of the podcast that we forgot to talk about in the intro segment, we're going to now take some time to try and address one of the other elements of the 40k hobby. You got your gaming, you got your buildy, painty, hobby stuff, I suppose, because although gaming is a hobby, we broadly categorise the painty, buildy stuff as hobby. I don't know why that is. But also, there is a little bit of lore, a little bit of fluff, a little bit of background that we don't often dive into here on the Lookout Sir 40k podcast. We hint at it, we make little moments or mentions of it, but overall it's a rare thing for us to discuss it. However, things are heating up in the 41st millennium. Stuff be getting real. And joining me to talk about the latest developments within the Psychic Awakening is, of course, Phil.
It is I, yes.
There he is. And Joe.
Hello.
Hello. So, interesting times ahead, really. I mean, obviously, the Psychic Awakening has been ticking over in the background. There's been some interesting moments. There's been some less than interesting moments. But, overall, progression of the story, building towards who knows what. Potentially 9th edition. I mean, who could say?
GW could.
They could, couldn't they?
They could put us out of our misery and just tell us in advance.
They might even tell us this weekend. You never know.
Maybe.
Aren't they doing reveals on Saturday or Sunday?
Ooh, do you know what? I think they might be.
I think they are, sir. I think they are. But irrespective of all of that noise, one of the stories that really kind of excited us as a collective is the story known as Consequences, which was released on Warhammer Community. Link will be in the description if you haven't gotten around to reading this already. And if you haven't gotten around to reading this already and you want to read it before you hear us talk about it, perchance you might either want to skip ahead or pause this and read Consequences and then, come back. Or you're like me and you don't really care that much about spoilers or all that sort of nonsense, and you're more than happy just to sit there and listen to our, mad assertions and statements based on what we're reading. But if we were to synopsisize, elevator pitch, Consequences, Phil, how would you sell that?
So the TLDR version of it is there's a reinforcement fleet, so the ones that carry the new Primaris that go out into the world to gift the new Emperor's special chosen people of Primaris to the old chapters to reinforce them. So that's basically what's going on here. There's a specific name for the fleets, but I can't remember what they're called. So we've got a shield captain, I believe he is. Yeah, shield captain Tyvar, who's a custodian. You've got Knight Centura Decima, who is a Sisters of Silence. And then you've got the Brazen Drakes Space Marines, and you've got the what's the name? You've got Geryon, who's a captain of the Grey Shields, because they're not yet officially gifted to the Brazen Drakes. So they arrive at the Brazen Drakes' homeworld, ready to restore order, and they find it's in absolute chaos. The planet's war-torn. They don't quite know what's going on. But what flickers up on the screen is this kind of image of the Ordo Hereticus symbol, along with a message that is declaring the Brazen Drakes as Diabolus Extremis Hereticus.
I think it's those words in a different order, but yes.
In a different order, yes. So basically, the original old school Space Marines have clearly fallen traitor and have been declared heretics. And basically what happens on board the ship is the custodian turns to the captain and basically says, well, you guys are now traitors, so you need to drop your weapons, come with me. Don't know what's going to happen to you yet, but we'll work it out. We'll speak to people. And the Space Marines are up in arms. They're like, oh, it could be the machinations of chaos that have done this as a trick. We're loyalists. We haven't done anything. So why are we being blamed when it is our brothers, but it's not us that have done this? And the custodian basically says, oh, I don't care. You've still got to come with me. I am the Emperor's voice. I am correct. And then one of the other assistants to the captain starts to complain and have a bit of a moan, and the custodian just kills him. He shoots him at close range with his bolter, which finishes him off. And then the captain of the Brazen Drakes decides to signal all of his men on the fleet that they're going to try and take the fleets, because they're not going down without fights, because they're worried that they'll just all be killed. And then a big fight ensues. The sisters and the custodians are fighting together. And spoilers, at the very end, the Captain Girion gets impaled by a custodian spear and killed.
Not one of his better days.
Not one of his better days. He did well. It was there's about half of the story is the build up and the talking, and then another half is action fight sequences. And then they sort of say to each other at the very end, "Oh, what have we started?" And the custodian says to the sister, "Oh, we haven't started it, but we're going to finish it," basically.
There you go.
And that's the story. So it's an interesting one, because it's Primaris Marines being cast out as traitors. And was the custodian right to do that?
I mean, I think in a typical GW style, I don't know if many people out there were pretending to be Brazen Drake collectors or knowledgeable of this chapter prior to this.
I think, looking, because I checked on their Wikipedia page, the only references to them are this story and another Psychic Awakening story, which is the one about the assassins.
So it's like in Star Trek when they introduce characters who have a couple of lines and then are killed off shortly thereafter. It's like,
yes.
I don't remember that crewman on the bridge last episode. Oh, look, they're dead. What a shocker.
Yeah. It's like in The Walking Dead when, they don't seem to have many people in their camp, but people are always being killed off. And it's like, where are these new people coming from? And why are they dying? Why don't they have plot armor? What's going on?
I tell you what, though, although this might now get into the old tangent territory, so maybe something to save for later, but that is one of the more frustrating elements of the 40k narrative that they're weaving within, the current progression of the 40k story, is only really underwhelming characters are getting killed off. No one important is dying in 40k, are they?
No. You'd be scared if you've just been introduced into this realm, wouldn't you?
Well, exactly.
You're like, oh, I've got a name. Oh, I've got a ship. I've got a reasonable sized crew. I'm nervous.
Exactly. This is not a good time to be me.
Yeah, if 40k had the kind of Game of Thrones sensibility of killing off characters, no one would ever buy a model because they'd be worried it would die off instantly.
Well, I'm not entirely sure. Now, I'm worried that I can't remember if we had this conversation on the podcast or whether we had this conversation between ourselves. We definitely did, didn't we?
I think we did, yeah, in the last episode, I think.
I'm pretty sure, because I have got haunting memories of us talking about this. But yeah, if you haven't heard us rant about that already, I think we already did on the last episode. But yeah, look, I mean, that point aside, I think this is actually quite an interesting development in some respects. Yes, okay, fair enough. They've had to introduce some meaningless chapter that, has to be, the ember or the fire that starts the explosion, or the pebble that starts the avalanche, or whatever it is. But it's still interesting, certainly, because ultimately there's a few interesting things at play here. There is an obvious, issue with the regular Marines that these guys have arrived, but the fact that it extends to and includes Grey Shields, who up to this point hadn't even spent a day walking in the shoes of the old Brazen Drakes. They've just been Grey Shields, assumingly with some kind of because the Brazen Drakes themselves don't have a specific gene seed just for them. I mean, obviously they'll have their stockpile, but they're clearly either a successor from either the Ultramarines or I guess the Salamanders. I mean, does anyone know who these guys belong to?
I mean, by their name itself, you would guess Salamanders because of the word Drake in there, but I don't think they confirm it anywhere.
Yeah,
I can have a quick Wikipedia look to see if it explains it.
In is it the Dark Imperium book where Belisarius Cawl is we've got all this other gene seed on Mars we could use, wink wink nudge nudge, and Gilliman's like, no, don't touch it. Don't use it. It could be bad.
Yeah. Is it?
He's we don't know whether he's used it or not yet.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, isn't it? There's been a lot of funny little moments sort of seeded, no pun intended, within the story around the idea of them, using the old Traitor Legion's gene seeds. I don't think... Because there's a specific reference into this narrative where the Custody refers to the entire gene seed of their chapter as tainted, or it's a tainted gene seed, or words to that effect. So that was an interesting implication, because the idea is hang on a second here, are these guys maybe Iron Warriors or Night Lords or something of that nature? But I don't think that's going to be the situation, is it? Because ultimately the Brazen Drakes that they're arriving toward or heading to the planet of are old school normal Marines, and it's highly unlikely, unless they were part of maybe, I don't know, the 13th founding or whatever it was, that they're probably not going.
I
to
imagine
be
they're
treacherous.
part of I imagine they're part of was it the Troubled founding or the?
Wasn't that the 13th one, the one where where
that's the Curse founding?
Yeah,
the Curse founding, which had the Minotaurs and the stuff like that in it, where a bunch of them were all tainted.
Yeah, although fun fact about Minotaurs. So there were two versions.
Here we go. We got them going.
There were two versions of the Minotaur chapters. The original ones that had that weird yellow and red sort of hazard stripe heraldry. They were the original ones from the Curse founding, and then they disappeared. And then these new sort of bronze armored Minotaur chapter came about much later. So there's speculation that they're not actually the same chapter, but they've just taken the name for them.
Ooh, that adds an extra element of intrigue to them, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there's they're always constantly using old heraldries and stuff, because the Mentor Legion, which are a relatively new chapter of Primaris Marines. Oh no, they're not. They're not Primaris. The ones in the Emperor's Spear, he goes there, and all the Emperor's Spears hate him because he's wearing the colours of one of their friendly chapters that basically got destroyed, which was the Star Scorpions or something.
So what? This guy was posing as a Star Scorpion, but he's not a Star Scorpion.
Well, no. So basically, the Imperium had basically written the Star Scorpions off as destroyed in the warp when they went on a crusade. So they just reused the chapter number and heraldry in colours on the Mentors. But then it turned out that all the Star Scorpions had basically just turned to Slanesh.
And then there's that weird, just to go off on a complete tangent potentially, but then there's that weird successor chapter for the Grey Knights, right? That aren't actually Grey Knights.
Is
They're
there?
just the Exorcists. The Exorcists. The Exorcist chapter is reportedly a Grey Knight successor chapter, but obviously they're not Grey Knights, they're just regular Space Marines.
Oh, I can't believe that. That's a bit weird.
There's some sort of weird nonsense around that.
That sounds a bit fan fiction-y to me.
I don't know, I think it's in there. I think that is a whole thing. In fact, I will, while you're talking about the other things, I will research that momentarily and come back with
I'm already typing it into the Googles.
Yeah, the Exorcist successor chapter of the Grey Knights.
Yeah.
You found it?
Yeah, they've got the librarian symbol, haven't they? Is the
They do.
chapter symbol.
They do, yes, and they're all red.
It's called the
stuff.
Dark Founding. So there's the Dark Founding, which is the 13th, and then there's the Curse Founding, which is the 21st.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought. Let's say maybe they renamed it because I thought it was always the 13th was always the Curse one, but maybe not.
Yeah, things are moving all the time, right? Things be changing day by day when it comes to Warhammer 40,000. You can never keep up.
They are cool. It would be cool to have an army of these guys because I really like their color scheme and their
Joe, not another army. Calm down.
But the problem is you'd have to buy like 40 librarians just to get the shoulder pads.
That is true. 40 librarians is the way forwards.
I'm sure Phil's guy who prints them off would be quite good.
Oh yeah, but that wouldn't be shoulder pads, would it? That'd just be transfers.
Transfers. You can live with transfers. Although looking at the symbols for these guys, they've got some very word bearers-esque writing all over them.
Ooh.
Well, I think that is a classic go-to sort of trope, is to hint at
naughtiness,
sort of traitor, legion,
well, wouldn't that
heritage? Because they do that with the Minotaurs. Like Minotaurs, I think are meant to be Iron Hands.
Well, weren't some of the founding members
Iron Warriors?
So
there's supposed to be a mix between Iron Warriors and World Eaters.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Because wasn't some of the founding members of the Grey Knights though from like the Lunar Wolves, or rather the Sons of Horus and so on?
So you've got Gravel Loken is one of the founding members of the Grey Knights. There's a couple Ultramarines. There's a couple World Eaters. I think there's one Word Bearer, and one of the most notable ones is Sevatar from Night Lords, and he's the reason why Grey Knights all fight with pole arms, because he's basically trained them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, if you're a successor chapter of the Grey Knights, your gene seed is going to be well muddled, isn't it? But it's interesting anyway, like the fact that they're sort of putting that stuff in there about the potential. I mean, we've all I say we all, but we three have all heard that is something that is being sort of toyed around with, and it's reasonable to assert, based on the current lay of the land with Warhammer 40,000, that they're definitely keen to kind of sow the seeds of treachery within the Space Marines once again. I think one of the interesting things about Primaris is that in some ways they kind of, reset the clock a little bit when it came to treacherous behaviour for Space Marines. Like, treachery and Primaris weren't really a thing, and haven't been for the last, few years that they've first come into conception or come into being within the 41st, millennia and the relevant literature and lore and so on. But they are starting to show lots of signs of personality and character. I mean, one of the most notable moments I thought was in the Dark Angels Secret War book, where the Dark Angels don't trust these Primaris Marines, so they're constantly mind-wiping them to try and basically make sure that they don't know what's going on. One of the Primaris Marines essentially is like saying to the Interrogator Chaplain, "We know what you're doing, and we know what's going on. Come on now, sort it out." And they're showing little moments, aren't they, where they're starting to, find their feet a little bit.
They're supposed to be like pure and like uncorruptible, but then obviously you've got Death Company intercessors now. thing, which is like one of the major taints, and obviously the Space Wolves, the Canis Helix or whatever it's called, is like starting to show itself in them, kind of thing.
It's a bit like what they did with the Stormcast Eternals when they first came out in sort of first edition Age of Sigmar, and they were all sort of shiny and new and sort of nice and clean, and no one really knew what they were. But then in second edition, they're like, oh, actually, they get really corrupted each time they die and get reborn. And actually, you get really mad-looking ones now that are much more tribal looking. And I think that's what they're doing with the Primaris as well, give them a bit more sort of humanity, but by making them a bit weird. I mean, like in the Consequences story, basically the Custodian says, even though you haven't done anything, the fact that you're questioning my authority is enough to make you traitor. It's like your actions of not laying down your weapons is what's condemning you here.
But again, when it comes to the Grey Shields, right? I mean, you got to think about the life these Grey Shields have lived before going back out there and repopulating the Imperium, so to speak. Because prior to this, they were on a crusade with Guilliman, weren't they? They were basically all out there smashing their way through the galaxy. Fair enough, the Custodes were involved in that process. But, the might of the Primaris Marines is what kind of reforged the Empire. And they're probably not used to being in a situation yet where they're not, even going to be given sort of a reasonable hearing. Because obviously one of the things with the Custodes is they're very representative of the old ways, almost the kind of stern, nature of the Emperor, his unforgiving will, the way that he always sort of was, in as much as obviously he appears as a father figure to the Primarchs, but overall, he's historically proven himself to be quite a cold dictator character that's willing to, to commit, complete and utter genocide against races and things that he's created. I mean, the Thunder Warriors being exactly that they've just sort of came along, they did what he needed them to do, and then he sent them all out. Well, basically they all just dropped dead, and he didn't think about it. He just moved on to the next.
They were all killed by the 10,000. They were all killed by the Custodes. I recently just listened to the Valdor book, and the Valdor book is all about the persecution of Valdor and the disappearance of the Thunder Warriors. Because the committee or the High Lords of Terror are like, where did all of these hundreds of thousands of soldiers disappear off to? And Valdor's like, I don't know. Like they're just gone now. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. What Thunder Warriors?
Exactly. Sorry, what? What do you mean? Who? I mean, come on now. Who would call their soldiers Thunder Warriors? Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Space Marines, mate. That's where they're at.
That's a really good book. It's a very good history book.
Oh, that's cool. Because in Watchers of the Throne, they talk about it in this Consequences story a little bit. Like the Space Marines are all about loyalty to their brothers, whereas Custodians are loyal to the Emperor. And it's like that's the difference between them. And it's like the Custodes don't even really trust the Grey Knights, who are like their kind of closest brethren that they have, because there's still that difference between them. And it's interesting in that story because he even like questions whether the Grey Knights are sort of better than the Custodes, because it's like they were the last iteration created by the Emperor himself, sort of for the time ahead, whereas the Custodes were like for the time that never came, because they were meant to be like guardians over an empire that never came to be.
Yeah, the Custodians are always really, really interesting, or the Custodes rather, and I think that's always really interesting when you look at the range or the different sort of factions or entities within the Imperium. And on the surface of it, you always hear people kind of talk about the Custodes in gameplay terms, and they're like, oh, they should have bolter discipline or drill or whatever it's called, and they should have this. It's like, well, no, because the Custodes is not ever intended really to be an army. It's a couple of dudes that look after stuff and oversee things. And
I sort of really feel like they'd have been better off giving you access. Like, I almost feel like every Imperial army should have the option of adding in just 1 or 2 custodians. And like, that's it. There's no army of them because they're not. I mean, in
but you're
Watches of
forgetting,
Frames,
Phil. The money. Phil.
Well, it's all changed story-wise anyway, because up until the point of sort of Watches of the Throne, which is all about the Cicatrix Maledictum coming into being and the Cadian Gate being destroyed and what happens on Terra when that happens. And up until that point, they're all like individual men, and they're like, we've never even seen all of our custodian brothers in like one place. And then when that does happen, they're like, oh wow, this is a bit unusual for us. And then obviously, you know, down the line, Gilliman's going to come back and be like, no guys, you've got to come with me and go off and do stuff and actually fight as an army. Which is sort of unusual for them, actually.
Well, it's funny as well, isn't it? Because at one point in that story, I seem to remember the Custodes talking about the Primarchs with quite a lot of disdain, actually being like, yeah, these Primarchs are a pain in the bum. We don't really understand what the deal is with them, but because I guess obviously the Primarchs in so many ways sort of challenged the Custodes for their position in the pecking order, because you know they somewhat represented, they obviously were treated as the Emperor's sons, which I guess obviously the Custodes kind of are also, I guess. Well, I mean, all of them are really.
The Custodes are like, there's 10,000 of them, but each one is made on an individual basis and crafted in a specific individual way. So like no Custodes is ever the same. Where
can I ask a question? Are Custodes, do they still get made? Or are they just very old people, even older than Primarchs?
They still get made.
They still get made, yeah.
But they're all individually hand-picked. But they're all special, so they're all like sons of like old warlords, or like they're sons of like mass criminals kind of thing. Like really powerful, clever people, but their children are then turned into these guardians of the throne, and their families are murdered.
But I suppose the point of difference, isn't it, between the Custodes and the Space Marine is the Space Marine was an army designed to conquer the galaxy, and the Custodes were individuals made to maintain and protect it, and that's the big point of difference between them, is that Space Marines were all about going out there and getting it done, and they're there to uphold the peace and maintain law and order and all that stuff. I mean, obviously as well, one of the things that's really interesting about the Psychic Awakening is the fact that it's been heavily hinted that within the War of the Spider, that Fabius Bile is now mucking around with these guys as well. So, I mean, is there a potential? I mean, again, they didn't speak about it specifically, but is there a potential that this individual, this shield captain, could he actually be the traitor himself?
I don't think so, because they're supposed to be perfect and uncorruptible. That their brains are altered so that like they can only follow the word of the Emperor. What he says goes. Like,
but there's a heavy implication that Fabius has been working behind the scenes on them for some time.
On the Custodes.
Yeah.
Oh, not because I imagine he'd be working on the Primaris stuff.
No, mate. So if you remember,
in the artwork in the video for the War of the Spider, he has been tinkering around with dead ones. But I don't think that he'd ever be in a position where he could corrupt live ones.
I mean, you say that though. He clones Primarchs.
Yeah, but he could only do that once the Primarch was dead.
Well,
so the only Primarchs he cloned was Horus and Ferrus Manus, and they all went a little bit loopy.
Indeed. I
guess it gives you a chance to like have dark Custodes or dark Primaris into the range, because it's like they're not going to redo Chaos as Chaos Primaris Marines because they've only just redone the Chaos range. But what you might have is some unique units that are based on Custodes or Primaris gene stock that are traitor.
There could be the new Possessed potentially, because Possessed have got 2 wounds now.
But here's the thing, right? He's been working on this old Fabius for years and years and years and years and years, mate. I mean, we're talking 10,000 years of research. He was cloning Primarchs 10,000 years ago. There's no reason to assume that he couldn't have worked out a way of making a Custodes or reanimating a Custodes and then having that Custodes infiltrate a position of authority on a Grey Shield's ship, right? I mean, that's entirely feasible.
I think because all the 10,000, like, they still know each other. Like, every single Custodes they spend 100 years on loop defending the throne. Each and every one has to stand next to the Golden Throne for like 100 years on loop. So I think you'd have to be pretty well trusted, having done that, to then be sent out and do the Crusade fleet.
Yeah, but I mean, there's enough of a MacGuffin there, isn't there? I mean, again, I think I appreciate the perspective that you're adamant it can't be done. I think it just adds an interesting extra layer. I mean, ultimately, prior to this, we've received a lot of hints that Custodes are being mucked around with Fabius Bile, and then the Custodes turns up, who starts murdering Space Marines because he's saying they're traitors. Now, albeit he's saying they're traitors based on information that he's receiving, but it's all very convenient. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think the thing is, if it was just himself saying, "I think you're traitors," then you could question that. But it seems like the Inquisition have already cast out the Brazen Drakes, and they've given the authority to call them traitor, and he's just reinforcing what they've said, basically. And I think that's the thing. Like that's what makes his role a bit more legitimate and his point of view like the right one, because it's not just him saying it, but he's like enacting the will of the Inquisition on that point. And there's actually another story featuring the Brazen Drakes, which I've not read yet, which is Burden of Brotherhood, which is more, it looks like it's more about the chapter master of the Brazen Drakes. So I mean, that would be an interesting one to read. Like, I'd love it if like the Brazen Drakes become a thing and like you see more of them in the actual Psychic Awakening books.
I don't know, I just think their colour scheme, there ain't much to look at, mate. I mean, unless this one is wrong. I mean, they're white with a green arm.
Oh, where have you seen the artwork for them then?
Well, it's just on Google image searches. It's the first thing that comes up.
I don't think there is any, though, because they've only been in these 3 stories, and there's no like official artwork for them. So it might be just some fan art, potentially. But I remember ages ago sort of complaining that the Psychic Awakening, like, they weren't really doing much to tell the story. And it seems like they've actually really ramped that up now, because they've just been releasing a ton of these like mini stories on the Warhammer community website that are actually all really interesting and engaging. Like, there's a cool one about a Deputus Mechanicus. I think he's like a Dominus of some kind, and he's on board a ship. And he doesn't trust this other Dominus that's on the ship because he's cordoned off one of the hangars and claimed that there's been like some radiation leak, and basically some weird device that's been hidden there. So there's lots of teasing with all these different stories, and I hope it actually all gets tied together into parts of the story that are going to appear in the later books.
And there's definitely a big emphasis on the moment of the enemy within, isn't there? There's a lot of intrigue and uncertainty about who you can trust and who's doing what and how this is all kind of coming together. And I think that's obviously indicative of the fact that you're seeing the certain type of players that you're seeing involved in it, very treacherous and devious characters like Fabius Bile, like the Chaos Demons and things that were in play during that sequence. I know Magnus was quite heavily involved with the whole sequence between the Dark Angels and the Grey Knights, and yeah, there's lots of really interesting elements. And then obviously all the while longer you got Ghazghkull going bonkers, which is super fun. So
I'd like to see GW throw a bit of a curveball and be like, the next Chaos Primarch will be Alpharis. Boom. Because like the Alpha Legion have been playing like a huge role in every single campaign that they've done recently, but hasn't really done anything for the Alpha Legion. They're just kind of used as a MacGuffin. Like, how did Chaos get here? Alpha Legion. Like this building was destroyed randomly. Why? Alpha Legion, kind of thing. Like, all the officers in this army have died mysteriously. Alpha Legion. It's just like they're using them to tell the story, but nothing much else.
Do you think, though, because again, there was always an implication that the Alpha Legion are more likely to potentially reveal themselves as some kind of loyalist faction, aren't they?
Yes, that's the given, but they fight more for humanity and the and like the destruction of chaos.
So they're like the salamanders.
They need chaos. Well, almost, yeah. The thing is, though, they need chaos to win, so that chaos burns itself out, and then what's left of humanity will then kind of grow out of the ashes.
Oh, I see. There you go. Solid strategy on their part.
They've clearly watched The Dark Knight, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, they were told by the Cabal. So the Cabal is like a group of old like alien races that are all immortal. And a lot of them are older, admittedly. And there's and they created
no Zotes.
No Zotes, I don't think so. And there's a bunch of people in it called the Perpetuals, who are basically human spies. Then they take a big part in the heresy. They're all humans throughout Earth's history that have been plucked up and then like turned into agents for them. My favourite character is John Grammaticus, who's a US Marine who was picked up off the beaches of Iwo Jima during World War II, and basically given eternal life in exchange for doing their bidding.
Wow, there you go. Deep.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, how 40k lore does that in terms of, it's not immediately obvious, but there are the funny little nuggets or little moments of real world references, like how obviously the Emperor of Mankind has been every significant hero in all of history. He's George in George and the Dragon. He's every other kind of like religious icon or leader or things of that nature. I always used to really enjoy all of that mad kind of how the original like GW writing teams and all the kind of guys that came up with this years and years ago have kind of managed to come up with all that madness that's sort of there and can be discovered, but it's sort of not broadly talked about.
Oh god, yeah. It's like how the Golden Throne and the Imperial Palace is made in the Himalayas, and because it's historically known as the cradle of humanity, so that's where the Emperor wanted to have his throne. Makes
sense. But yeah, so, I mean, in terms of this narrative specifically and where this is taking us and what that leads to, I mean, obviously, as Phil has admitted and stated, there's still more to be discovered, more to be read, and more to sort of take out of it. But it was it just struck us as a more interesting piece of narrative because it starts to really kind of ramp things up. And I think this, in conjunction with what we're seeing or what we're expecting to see come around the corner with War of the Spider, what we're seeing with what's the last one called, or the upcoming one with the Inquisitor with the dinosaur bones on her shoulders?
That is Pariah.
Yes, Pariah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of really exciting stuff coming around the corner. And obviously now that Games Workshop has started selling stuff again, although be it you can buy it, it doesn't seem to get sent to you, or at least that's been my experience so far. It's going to be exciting to start getting those books churning out again and starting to kind of see how, Ninth Edition comes into existence and how they build up to the inevitable release of Fulgrim, right? That's where it's going.
Probably. That's the theory.
Indeed.
Well, I've been teasing him all the way back since Gathering Storm books.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, he was very heavily featured, wasn't he, within Dark Imperium, because the start of the Dark Imperium book was Gilliman fighting him and how Gilliman found himself basically, put into the whole, the intensive care unit, if you will, that he ended up in for 10,000 years. But yeah,
it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of other little weird hints in terms of I don't know, like the perfumed aromas of him that enter into certain areas of conflicts and
there's a couple in different I think there's ones in the rule book and also in the Space Marine codexes and some other stuff where there's like little like stanzas and little paragraphs of stuff, like random stuff on the sides of the pages saying about like wars being fought and a mysterious four-armed snake demon kind of thing going around killing everyone. So yeah, I think they've just got a kind of, I think it's one of those things they've been building up for ages.
It's really exciting, man. And again, I think credit where credit's due to them. They really are ramping up this whole thing nicely. And if it does culminate in the release of 9th edition, then absolutely awesome. But regardless, I think it has some really amazing sort of narrative opportunities and potentially create some really intriguing moments throughout the kind of ongoing story. Because, you know, one of the most interesting things I think we've seen with Age of Sigmar has been the way that the GW writing team kind of went back to the early beginnings and created this new world. And we can all be honest with ourselves and admit that early doors Age of Sigmar was a bit underwhelming in terms of, you know, they had all this amazing scope and opportunity, but it really only now has begun to become actually quite fleshed out and actually quite a compelling universe. And I think that's similar in a way to where we're at with 40k, which is that we were always stuck in that moment of time, the 5 minutes to midnight, as people like to call it. You know, people hadn't necessarily really started to think about where this stuff goes after the fact. And, you know, yeah, sure, you know, they made a couple of blunt decisions early doors. There's going to be Primaris Marines. Gilliman's going to lead this new crusade. It's, you know, we're going to try and sort of create a very perilous but ultimately relatively, you know, sustainable situation. But we don't really know where we're going to go from there. And I think actually now that they're, you know, building things up very sensibly and maturing the relationship between Primaris Marines, regular Marines, Custodes, defining what the Imperium is, working out what Chaos are going to be doing, it's actually turning into actually quite an interesting narrative overall. It's getting better, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, like I said, Age of Sigmar 1 was a sort of a bit of a sort of sharp shock to everyone. It's like you got to pull that band-aid off before it can all heal. And it's like 8th edition was like that as well. It was like, we're changing the law, we're moving on the timeline, we're introducing Primaris Marines, and everyone got angry and rageful about like, you've done all this stuff. But now that's all sort of settled down. Everyone get used to that idea, and now they can actually go off and develop and create new stuff. So whatever edition comes next is only going to get better because they can actually do some interesting storylines. Because before they were just like, it was constantly the same stuff. It was like Armageddon, Cadia. It's still happening. Nothing's changed. And it's like, that would have been really boring if they'd done that for a few more years. And it's like with AOS, it's like that came out and it was sort of exciting, but no one knew what to do with it. There were no maps. It was like a sandbox, but no one knew how to play in it. But now they've gone, okay, no, there's these worlds and there's these maps and you can do all this cool stuff, and now everyone's like really embracing it. And I think it just takes time for it to sort of reach fruition, and I think that's what the point we're going to be at with 40k now.
Yeah, I think in so many ways it reassures or reasserts the fact that, you know, Games Workshop haven't gotten to where they are by mistake, you know, and as much as I definitely criticise some of the narrative decisions they took to get us into 8th edition and to bring us to the point they've arrived at, most notably the way the Primaris stuff works, but also even things like how, you know, Magnus returned, for example, and as Joe said in the last episode, talking about how Magnus should have probably killed Fenris. You know, like it should have. Yeah. It probably needed one win, didn't it?
Yeah, they needed that like easy win. Kind of set, like, make them feel positive about what they're doing.
But
yeah, just to sort of set them up as ballers, basically.
Yeah. Like they've come here for business. Like they killed Cadia, which was like a big shock. But Cadia has always been like one of those meh planets. Like it's always been fought over. Like since the Eye of Terror, since like the end of the Heresy. Like Cadia's just been there, just fighting. Like no one really cares. It's just old news. But like them going like boom, a chapter homeworld has been destroyed, which you'd think would be relatively safe. Like that's scary kind of thing. That's like a shock to the system.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they didn't have to kill off the chapter. They could have just been fleet based, or the other planets in that system. Just you're not really changing much from a rules perspective. It's just the lore of which planet in that system they're coming from.
Yeah, because like Space Wolves are supposed to be space barbarians anyway, aren't they? There's a bit like space Vikings, space whatever. Like having them as a ship-based army with like a fortress homeworld ship actually kind of makes sense then for them, because then they're going around on this like endless crusade instead of having.
I think they didn't do that because they were worried the Space Wolves fan base would get so annoyed, because it's almost like you're killing their army off even if you're not.
Well, no, because they can get new initiates from other places. They can get like Primaris Marines. They go in the one hand, we're going to take away Fenris to progress the story, but in the other hand, we'll give you Lehman Russ. And they'd be like, yeah. And then Games Archer would be like, yeah, but he's a demon. Boom! In your face.
Exactly. I mean, I'm still hoping they do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they did sort of muck up with old Logan Grimnar, though, didn't they? Because they sort of hinted towards him becoming chaosy. And then they're like, oh, yeah, don't worry about that anymore. Move on. But maybe they will revisit it. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You just never know when these things will reveal themselves or resolve themselves as it goes forwards. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's getting to a place where actually it's starting to sound quite good. Reinforces in so many ways that not only just from a rules perspective, but also from a broader perspective, the 8th edition was in many respects a bit of a beta, beta rule set. It was a living rule set and clearly a living narrative that is now potentially finding its feet. So should 9th edition come around the corner, hopefully we'll have a more tight and concise narrative and also rule set. So that should be interesting. But yeah, no, I think that was pretty insightful. Phil, closing thoughts on all of this, mate, and then we'll move on to whatever it is that comes next.
I enjoyed the story. I heartily recommend you check it out if you haven't already, along with the other Psychic Awakening stories on the Warhammer Community website. Overall, very positive. I like the fact the Custodian was clearly in the right, and the treacherous Primaris Marines were disemboweled and sorted out, good and proper. It's actually made me look at the Custodians and be like, I wouldn't mind a couple of those models now.
You're becoming more and more like Joe by the second, mate.
Custodians are awesome. Like I just like I said, I just listened to Valdor, and now I'm re-listening again to Master of Mankind. If you want a cool Custodians book, that is the one to go for.
I used to have some Custodians, but I sold them all recently because I realised my ability to produce armies is limited and life's too short, so they went. But I do admit they are very cool, but whatever. Awesome. All right. Well, there you go, guys. That was us rambling on about loosely the narrative of Consequence, but also about some broader things and maybe treading some or retreading some previously discussed territory. But nonetheless, we hope you enjoyed that, and we're going to move on now to whatever it is that comes next. Woo! Welcome back, everybody. In this part of the show, we're going to be joined by Adam Shepherd-Jones of 40k Brawl fame. How's it going, Adam?
Yeah, not too bad. Just living the dream in the sort of isolation that is the world these days.
Well, exactly, mate. Exactly. It's a wonderful
dream.
What
we're all doing, really. Apart from those that are obviously breaking the rules, but I'm not one of those people.
Exactly. You're a good boy.
Moderately.
Moderately. At least when it comes to obeying the rules. These specific rules.
I obey some rules. I obey these rules.
You obey these rules. That's very good of you. Very good indeed. So anyway, yeah, so obviously hot off the heels of Beachhead Brawl, which was broadly quite a successful event, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was 3 months. In fact, it was exactly 3 months ago. It's like the quarter anniversary, or whatever it would be.
There you go. There you go. I mean, Joe, you attended. Did you enjoy the Beachhead Brawl?
I am surprised that it was only 3 months ago, because it feels like a year since it happened. But I had a really good time. I really enjoyed it. Did terribly, like awful. So if we could redo that with all the models I've painted since lockdown, it would be much better.
It was mad to think as well, though, right? Because back then, it was all crazy, like, stormy, tidal wavy, mad stuff, wasn't it, as well?
There was a massive storm going on at the time, yeah, because the window looked out onto the sea and you could literally watch the world. Well, we thought the world was ending then, but it turns out it was, 4 or 5 weeks later.
I mean, that was the mad part of it, right? Because, I mean, yeah, I remember, like, the car park and stuff was, like, getting flooded and, like, it was pretty bonkers. But inside, I mean, we only had a moment.
That was only the beginning of 2020. Back when Australia was on fire, we thought, "Oh, this isn't going very well."
I know. It wasn't off to a cracking start, was it? I mean, that being said, though, right? I mean, the bar one little momentary power cut, it all ran pretty smoothly, I'd say.
Yeah, it did. It went as well as I could have hoped. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. I would say we'll definitely be doing it next year, but it just depends on how long this goes on for and what the deal is with social gatherings of that size. Because we would have looked to do it. I think it's the 7th and 8th of February next year or something like that. I can't remember, but that may get pushed because I believe we're not going to be allowed any mass gatherings until there's a vaccine, and that's probably a bit early on the year to be sort of betting on that date, I think.
Weren't you looking at doing another one this year?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, we were in talks actually with a hotel in Bournemouth to put on. I think we had space for about 75 tables when we were going to do a mixed Age of Sigmar 40k one in September, but it's just unfortunately the world's gone mad. So this year is somewhat of a washout.
Yeah. We've got the Killer Hornets now, haven't we? That's the new one.
Oh, well, they go to America. I don't think we're getting the Murder Hornets.
Oh, that is a brilliant name as well.
We see the size of them. They are massive. They're literally the size of a hornet, and I mean the Eldar tank.
That's like a great name for a chapter, though.
Yeah.
The Murder Hornets, yeah.
Murder Hornets. Yeah, that could work. Well, I've got some. They're currently known as Iron Raven Scars. So maybe I'll just call them, edging my bets a bit there. Maybe I'll just call them the Murder Hornets instead.
That could be a good new name for them.
Paint yellow stripes on them.
Yeah. Yellow and green should never be seen, though.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't aware of the Murder Hornets. I know this is obviously getting off on a tangent now, but when did that become a thing?
What? The tangent for your podcast?
I know. Could you believe it?
Murder Hornets. I believe Murder Hornets were fairly recent. Recently attended the news.
Okay.
Like in the last week or so.
Well, exciting.
Does it matter? Everyone's locked out. Oh, not in America. Trump's mad.
Yeah.
I mean, some might say that, but others of us take an entirely neutral political stance when creating content on the internet.
Especially when you want to break that America.
Exactly, right. Exactly. That's what it's all about. Anyway.
America. The America will be broken.
Well, good. There we are. Optimism.
There we go. I'm just, yeah.
Good. Thanks, Ad. So obviously within the tournament side of things, I mean, you're not necessarily just in the business of putting on big hundreds. How many was it in the end for Beachhead Brawl? 115 something or other?
I think we had 104. And then it ended up at like 96 finished the 6 games, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, it was really good turnout by all accounts. I mean, weirdly, you and I went to an event in Winchester, which I guess is obviously a lot easier for the London folk to get to. I mean, they had mad attendance, didn't they, when they did that?
It was like was it 44 for a 1-day 3-round event?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Madness. Yeah.
But because you also do similar kind of like smaller 1-dayers in Toyman, right? In Poole.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically when the world's not ending / just madness, we do one a month actually, which is what was booked in, but obviously we can't do that at the moment. Once we get back to normality, it will just depend on or the first stages of normality, maybe, depending on what happens. As soon as we're allowed some sort of social gathering of 20-ish people, which hopefully will happen in the next month, maybe, if we're being optimistic, then maybe we'll start to get some small tournaments back on. But realistically, I can't imagine there are going to be any majors this year now. I just personally can't see it, but you never know.
So in many respects, Beachhead Brawl was unique in as much as it's one of the few major events that have taken place.
Yeah, in fact, I'm pretty sure that's probably the biggest event this year. I don't know. There might have been another one, but I don't know what will happen with the rest of the big ones for the rest of the year, because it's all looking. I mean, the tournament organizer scene are all obviously they're all involved in various chat groups, and I think most of them, or most of us now, will see this season as a bit of a write-off. So whether or not we see any other big ones this year, I don't know. It's going to be tricky, for sure.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we already know that the LGT has moved itself back. I mean, what are you getting much of a feeling from them in terms of where they're at or how that's looking, or do you not really worry too much about that?
I do. I take a keen interest because it's sort of that is my interest really. I think it's mid to end September, but I've got a ticket. But my personal view is that it'll happen if the government allow it to happen.
Yeah, of course. I don't want to put you in an awkward situation where you're saying something that
we don't know. That's the thing. Like, nobody can run any tournaments at the moment. Everything's on lockdown. We don't know what the next stage is going to be, whether that's going to be you're allowed to go out of your house and go for exercise, or whether you're going to be able to have like social gatherings of like 5 people or something, which would be good, because at least then you can go in your mate's house and play a game 40k, which is what we've all been missing. Some of us don't. And hopefully we get to a stage where we can get 20 people in a room. Because Toyman is, it's not super cramped, but I wouldn't want to put any more than 20 people in there at the moment if we're allowed to, I think. So.
Yeah, because if I remember the table layout relatively well, I mean, at capacity you guys had, 30 tables?
It's 20. Well, we could fit 22 in total.
Yeah. So
quite spaced out. There's like a 6 foot or 5 foot gap between all the tables at least, and some big gangways. So
yeah, because I guess like in the corner ones where you've got like the 2, because you've got that central kind of like reservation, as it were, of like 3 tables in a row, and then you've got the one in the top left corner, and then the 2 the other side, and then it goes back into like that area where there's just tables either side. I guess, yeah, like you say, if you were in a situation where you were allowed a social gathering, you would be able to theoretically achieve social distancing in that space, right?
Well, you wouldn't be able to keep 2 meters apart because the table's only 4 foot.
True.
Social distancing, unfortunately, is not possible whilst playing 40k, as far as I can work out, unless somebody's going to disappear, then come back. But you're never going to be able to watch your opponent roll your dice, and I don't see it happening. I think that's just not 40k isn't going to work. Unfortunately,
it needs to be like that World War II office where you've got a little stick to slide the models around.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe that's the way forward. I just don't. Yeah.
A special dice rolling area with like a magnifying glass on it, so as you can see the results really.
Camera point down on the dice box, and then a little screen to show everything on the dice. So.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Right? Because I mean, all of us, even Phil, who by his own admission is a serious hobbyist first, as opposed to a gamer. We've all really, really loved gaming events, and we're all missing them. Because, they're a really great social opportunity for us to get out there and be amongst our people, which is always really lovely. I mean, I've massively enjoyed all the Warhammer World events and all the independent tournaments that I've been fortunate enough to go to over the course of, the last few years. And it's definitely a real shame that obviously all of this has impacted that, but obviously for the right reasons, right? I mean, we're all grown adults, we understand, but Yeah, I think probably most impacting for, say, me and Joe specifically was that we were making a real go of it this year, weren't we, Joe, from an ITC perspective?
We were, yes. But I'm terrible at the game, so
Terrible is unfair, Joe. You're average.
I'm average. Yeah.
I know that's secretly going to annoy him as well.
I wanted to go for I wanted to play the numbers game. So if I did like every tournament going, I'd eventually create enough points to get me somewhere near the top. That's the idea.
That's not quite how it works, but yeah, it's just your best 6 results, Joe. So you could do all the tournaments in the world. If you finish plumb last in all of them, it doesn't matter.
I'd be the best of the worst. So that's what
all right, yeah.
Well, you were going for Drakari fame, weren't you, Joe?
I did to begin with, and then I just kind of did terribly with them at Beachhead because I didn't have enough stuff painted to actually do a competitive list. I was just like.
So then you started just taking Steve's armies to games, didn't you?
Yeah, but then I took his army to Beachhead and did.
No, not Beachhead. It was, what was that one called? That was the very last tournament we all did, which was basically like a week ahead of the lockdown, wasn't it?
It was Eternal War, and I figured out that although I've played against it a million times and been pasted by it, I wasn't actually any good at running it. So.
The last tournament, I guess the last tournament you did was probably the one in Port, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Because literally that tournament happened, and then I think the following week, lockdown happened.
Yeah, it was literally like, no time between the two. It was that one. Well, lockdown happened the week afterwards, but it was literally like the government had started to say that we needed to start staying away from clubs and pubs and things, but they didn't tell them to shut till the following week.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So we had that sort of famous weekend where people were, out in parks cycling and stuff on mass.
Yeah, they said. Because they told everyone that pubs were going to be shut the following day, but they said, don't go to the pubs today.
Yeah. Did you see like the people queuing for the last McDonald's? I thought that was quite endearing.
Have you seen? Because they've opened up some KFCs now, and there's.
I know the one in Basingstoke, mate, down the road. I'm tempted.
The queue. I saw there was a video online of the queue, and it was just like. Absolutely mental.
Oh yeah, it's a 70-80 car queue at any time.
Wow.
And I was quite tempted to join it. I was like, ooh, KFC. But
what time does it close? If you get in late?
I don't know, mate. Maybe all the chicken's gone by then, though. They can't have enough chicken to furnish that demand.
It's always the chicken poppers that go first.
Potentially, although it's called popcorn chicken, Joe.
All right. It's just delicious chicken. Although you never feel like you've eaten anything after a KFC.
I mean, that definitely isn't true.
Yeah, you normally feel like the word that you're not going to say on your podcast beginning with S.
Yeah.
And ending in yes. It's another word for poo.
There you go. Well done.
Same as McDonald's. Like, as soon as you eat that stuff afterwards, you just feel like you can't help but eat it because it's got something in it that makes you
you feel good whilst you're eating it, but afterwards, it's like
bad times.
It's like you get that post-eating shame, don't you?
Yeah. But yeah, regardless of all that stuff, I think ultimately we're all enjoying like the tournament side of things, and me and Joe were interested in trying to do okay at it. My aspiration was to do well with Craft World, and I had of the 3 events I've been to, 2 out of 3 of them went really well, so I was feeling good about that, all things considered, but. I mean, what's the general vibe, Ad, in terms of what you're hearing for the ITC this year? I mean, you kind of said already that it's sort of potentially a bit of a write-off, but is that how they're looking at it, or how's it going to work?
Yeah, even the ITC guys that run the show, so Reese and Frankie have basically said they know this year is basically a write-off. There's the ITC purse, as it were, so the prize for the person who wins the ITC isn't going to that person this year because the season sort of doesn't mean as much because we've had at least 4 or 5 months when there have been no tournaments. So that the purse is going to charity this year.
Brilliant.
So there's less to play for. They're hoping that that will go some way to discourage people discourage people from taking risks and trying to go put tournaments on and go to tournaments when they really shouldn't be, and they should be staying safe. So yeah, it's going to be the 1 year that doesn't count, and weirdly, it's going to right in the middle of 40k being the biggest it's ever been. There have never been more 40k players than there are right now, especially competitively. Like the number of people that were attending tournaments up and down, well, around the world, it's just mental.
It's just be really controversial and say that COVID-19 is the best thing that's ever happened to my wargaming career, because it's given me a chance to paint everything that I own, and actually I've now got an army that I can take 2 events. And because I did so bad this year, I can hit the reset button and then come in afresh.
Well, indeed. And you haven't lost in a while either.
No.
At a tournament.
At a tournament.
I mean, it's been amazing, the growth, though, of 40k and the competitive scene, and that's been really, really interesting. But the thing is, I even experienced it myself, right? I mean, I've always played tournaments, but even I've noticed that the sort of accessibility of those tournaments, the way that we're talking about them now, the dialogue around them, the demystification of everything that goes into it, the general attitude towards them, I think tournaments have done a really good job in the general sense of sort of becoming more appealing to people, because I think people are starting to see, personalities within the community come to the fore and actually start to, put a positive spin on the overall experience, and actually saying to people, there's something here that you need to experience. If you love 40k, we all love 40k. That's why we play tournaments.
And I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think there was a bit of and I would say unjust stigma attached to 40k tournaments, because people always thought, it's going to be full of people who don't want to play against, who are just trying to win at all costs, and they're not very nice to play against. But very rarely, I mean, I've played, I don't know, I normally play about 8 a year, I guess, but I run 6 or 7, and very rarely do I come across individuals who I wouldn't want to play.
Yeah.
And I think, generally speaking, people enjoy it and they go back, and that tells you all you need to know, I think.
Yeah. The thing I've really enjoyed about the process of tournament play is the sort of journey that we're all on as we get involved in it. You get people like Joe, for example, who are aspiring to become better, who are putting the work in, who are painting their armies and are, getting better and better, but they're still a way off from, achieving that kind of, first, second, third place finishes, whatever it may be, on a consistent basis. But then, at the same time, Joe has also gone through that kind of journey where he's happy in that reality. He just enjoys playing and being part of it and sharing in that experience. Would that be right, Joe?
Oh, 100%. Like, I go to a lot of tournaments knowing I'm not going to win, and I know that I'm probably going to finish somewhere in the mid-table. I'd love to go a lot higher, but I am also aware that there are a lot of people out there who are so much better than me. But when we went to Beachhead and there's 100 odd people there, I was amazed at how many people I knew from other events that I'd been to. So you can stand and have a 20-minute, half an hour long conversation with someone that you saw at an event a year ago and just have a good time. And I really like that. And a lot of the people there are all there for the same reason, that it's just a weekend away having fun and not taking it seriously.
Exactly right. And you're going to get people, like in the case of Beachhead, like your Vics or whoever, who turn up and bring an incredible army and play it well. But then when you encounter an individual like Vic and you play him, he might hand you your bottom. There you go. I used that instead of another word. But in doing so, he does it with a degree of charm and sophistication that means that you don't mind so much, as it were. Yeah, okay, fair enough. The army lists he brings and the sorts of player that he is means that this stuff is not going to go your way, but you don't necessarily feel like that individual is being especially aggressive or unreasonable. It's just the nature of the game. And I think when you go in with that attitude, it ultimately leads to you just I don't know, you just come away, I don't know, if you approach every sort of tournament as a learning process and go into it obviously hoping to win, but accepting that it's unlikely, but just trying to do your best and seek to make improvements and learn as you go, eventually you will just get better and better, and I think that's a lot of what the journey people have been on.
Vic's a prime example of that as well, because he's come from somewhat obscurity to just becoming, he's just decided this year, unfortunately he probably picked the wrong year, but as did you guys. He's come from nowhere to obviously leading the ITC. Obviously, we've not had any tournaments for 3 months, 3 months. But he's just got very good relatively quickly, or started playing a lot more very, very quick recently, and that's what's really. It gives hope to new players, I think, because Richard Siegler as well. I mean, he won the ITC last year. And he wasn't really playing competitive 40k the year before that. So, you can.
Doesn't he? Like, I heard him on a podcast, and he's like, I never actually practice or have competitive games outside of tournaments. He's like, all the games I have are fun thematic games with my mates.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of hate you a little bit because of that.
Well, he's just very good at theory, isn't he? And that obviously transposes onto the tabletop, and he does what he does.
I mean, some people can view the game that way, though. Some people just know the game on a fundamental level, and just understand the kind of theory behind it and what leads to victory. And ultimately, a lot of us approach the game with that kind of theoretical mindset, but then not all of us can deliver the results like he did, which is the thing. I mean, sometimes your theories are just wrong, or you just get an unlucky matchup where someone has conveniently bought the exact counter to your nonsense that actually wouldn't have worked against anything else, but just happened to against you.
Absolutely, and you can play people, and I've certainly come across these sorts of people who will bring an army that you look at it and think, Christ, this is really going to be a tough game because that's a very optimal list. But then whether or not it's because they don't want to play it that way, or they just like the thematic element to it, or they just literally hoiked the list off the internet and run it. I don't know, but you'll find that they'll do some weird things during games that are clearly not to their long-term advantage, but I think they just do it because at the end of the day, we're all playing a game of toy soldiers and we want to do what looks cool. So you'll get somebody who runs their HQ out into the middle of the table because he wants to hold them in the table. I remember I played a Space Wolf player, actually, at Warhammer World Heat 1 last year. We were playing that silly mission where you don't get an invulnerable save when you're in the middle of the board, and he ran his Leviathan Dreadnought into the middle of the board just because he wanted to go, I'm a Leviathan Dreadnought, and I rule the table, but probably got shot off by a melon. So, I mean,
it's the thing though, isn't it? And I think the thing is with like people and the way they approach it. I mean, I found that because there were a lot of people running the Siegler list. When I saw them playing it, and I always sort of knew when you'd sort of see them and you'd be like, oh, what secondaries are you going for then? And they're like, oh, I'm going to go for this killy thing and this. And it's like, oh, cool, you have no idea how this list works. Great, we'll be fine. But yeah, it's one of those interesting things in terms of
just get a real mix of players at tournaments.
Oh, totally.
And even when you turn up to your table and you see what you perceive to be an absolutely horrible list, and you think you're going to have an awful game because you're just going to get taken off the table. Quite a lot of the time, you don't.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had experiences again to talk through the Beachhead thing. I had an experience in my last game, so game 6, where I was up against a Raven Guard player who went first, and he had a captain
of the Centurions.
All Centurions, terrifying. And he went first, and he had captain smashes in my back lines, and I was like, well, this is going to be a bloodbath. And I tabled him. And I was like, okay. It's weird sometimes how these things swing and go. Some weird dice rolls, whatever. It can just go interesting ways. But yeah, right, okay. So in terms of the ITC season, the guys are giving money to charity. They're basically calling it a day. But what's the general kind of philosophy you think from TOs in the general sense right now towards the return approach? Are you guys just all sort of chomping at the bit to
I think,
get things going?
There are quite a few, certainly in the UK, that are very keen to get going. Some of them that are overly keen, I would say, and they probably just need to... I think what will inevitably happen is, as soon as we can have tournaments under government guidelines, we will. I think that's just what will happen. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know whether the player base will just jump it straight in and go, yeah, great, I'm playing. Well, I think there'll be an element of that, but I'm sure there'll be a good amount of people who are a little bit more reserved and maybe don't want to, run the risk of going into a room with 20, 30 other people. Because no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to do social distancing as it is now at a tournament. So, and until the government allow that, certainly in this country, you're just not going to see it. There are tournaments beginning to be registered in the US at the moment, because I know some of the states are starting to open up. And the ITC have essentially said, if your state or your country or your region allows you to have these gatherings, then we're happy for you to run tournaments. We're not going to overrule people. And we've already said the season isn't a standard season. It's not going to mean quite as much. It's going to be a bit of a quirky season. So just everyone, it's essentially about people just getting out there, staying safe, but having fun and playing the game that they enjoy playing.
And are the ITC organisers actually, because the process of registering with the ITC to earn ITC points is essentially something of a manual process, right? You submit your tournaments to the team either via Best Coast Pairing or by other means through like emails and things, and then they give you codes, right, to register for ITC points. So are the guys there checking to see whether or not they're allowed to run these tournaments and acting accordingly?
Yeah, so within the UK, depending on your region, there will be a rep for that region, and they'll obviously know the limitations of said region and will deny or allow tokens for said events as required. So there's not one body doing it. It's not a single person doing it, because no one could know the whole world's situation. So somebody local to the area where the tournament's being run will say yes or no, and that's essentially it. There's nothing stopping the tournament still running, but you just can't. You won't get any ITC points. The other thing they've said is obviously there's been quite a big uptake in tabletop simulator games recently. And there was talks of that being allowed, but unfortunately, because it is Games Workshop's IP, and we don't want to tread on their toes, as it were. Those games they're not ratified for ITC points. So
I think with Tabletop Simulator, though, right? I mean, it is a bit of a funny old system sometimes, because when we've played Tabletop,
it's difficult to roll dice, I find. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, Joe loves it, right, Joe?
I hate it with a passion. I'd rather shut my fingers in the car door than play that game. Just the dice bit on it does my head in. If we could rig up a camera onto a dice tray and then roll my dice outside of the game, I would be a lot happier.
Well, Joe, maybe we'll
roll
do
your
this.
special weighted dice.
Yeah, I'll use my 40k Brawl dice, which are
specially weighted. Yeah.
They are super lucky. They are. I always roll really well with those.
Yeah.
I mean, Phil, what's your vibe on as a more of a fluff bunny, as we love to call you? What's your vibe on the tournament scene? Will you be keen to get back out there and play tournaments? You feel, or are you just happy to write them off in the year 2020?
Well, I mean, I'm not a huge RTC person, as you guys know. I do love my Warhammer World events. It really depends on sort of the climate at the time. It's like if as soon as events can come up, I might not do them, just because if there's still a chance that you might catch something, it might just not be worth the risk. Saying that, I've still got tickets and flights booked for No Retreat, which is meant to be happening in September. So if I get the chance to do that, I think I sort of have to. just because I've spent money on it basically, and it would be a shame to miss out on it. And hopefully it won't be a risk at that point. But if it comes to it and it gets cancelled, it's like, then that's what it is. It'd be a shame, but at the same time, it gives me more of an excuse to just stay at home and paint. So
yeah,
it's not. Yeah, it is a bit of a shame that we don't get socialised as much. When we get to and events can kick back up, that'd be great. But I think you just need to sort of see what it's like. If there's going to be a second wave, for example, and things are going to lock down again, then you might have to sort of. I won't be, as soon as there is a tournament, I won't be jumping at the chance to go to it, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes sense.
I'll take my time and I'll choose one that I want to go to and I sort of feel comfortable that I can attend and it won't be an issue.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, man. I mean, I think I obviously am really looking forward to when we get to a place where just maybe we could get together, get back in the garage and play some Garage Hammer. That'll be a delight. I mean, Joe, you'll be keen, right?
I've got to be all over that. I've painted so much now. It's ridiculous.
There you go.
And the scary fact of it is I've still got loads left to do.
I know, it is an ongoing horror. You should come round sometime, mate. You've not come to the garage for a game of 40k?
I haven't, no, absolutely. I mean, if I'm still in lockdown but we're allowed to drive, next week might be an option. Who knows?
Potentially, mate, potentially. I mean, we can see what happens, I suppose. I mean, obviously, guidelines withstanding.
Currently, yeah. Yeah, I'm not. I won't be breaking any rules to do unnecessarily travel if it's not permitted.
No, I totally agree.
Absolutely, and the last time I played 40k was that Winchester event, which was, that must have been February. I think it was 29th of February.
Yeah, 29th of February was that one, and then your one was on the 14th, right? Saturday the 14th of March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That was the last game of 40k I played, was on the 14th of March. So yeah, but it was good, man. I mean, again, I really enjoyed that event. I mean, I suppose, that's as much as we can kind of say on the topic, right? I mean, obviously, it's good that the guys at the ITC have taken the necessary steps to try and enforce, or rather to discourage people from trying to take unnecessary risks and play games somewhat irresponsibly, I guess. And then obviously it's good that, that all that stuff sort of happened. What's the general vibe on the LVO at this moment in time? Have the frontline guys said much on that front?
Well, I've spoken to Reece and Frankie relatively recently, and they are, well, as time lingers. I mean, Las Vegas is, I think, Nevada generally is about to open up again, without much restriction as far as I can make out. So, and that's where those guys are based, and that's obviously where the LVO is. Mm-hmm. So, my gut feeling is they'll probably be all right. There seems to be, whether or not this is fact or not, I don't know. There seems to be a trend that the places where you get quite extreme heat, like deserts, don't appear to be having much of a problem with it. So hopefully those guys will be all right. But whether or not you're going to see the 1,000 people plus travel to Las Vegas to play Toy Soldiers in February 2021, I don't know.
I mean, you got to assume that they've made commitments, like long-term commitments to the hotel.
Absolutely, and the commitment to the Las Vegas Open is absolutely huge. It's money that you wouldn't even want to think about. It's massive.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but I'm sure they're taking steps to try and mitigate risk if they can.
It seems unlikely that they're going to get a record-breaking number though this time around.
Well, who knows? I mean, February next year is a way away. We'll just have to take it as it comes, I think.
Yeah, no, that seems reasonable.
But I mean, I was signed up for tournaments in Bristol in April. I was signed up to the LGT, obviously, which is supposed to be in June, is now hopefully in September. I'm signed up. I think I'm signed up to like 8 tournaments this year, but I know we've already gone through 2 or 3 of them. and they've obviously been cancelled or moved on. So yeah, somewhat like you. I mean, I wasn't specifically going for anything particularly. I wasn't aiming to get top 10 in the ITC or anything, or top faction or anything. I was just going to try and attend quite a few tournaments this year, just generally because I enjoy it. Yeah, it's all been sort of put on hold really because we can't get to any.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? I think, as I say, it's a question. I mean, again, acknowledging from the outset, or not from the outset because this isn't that, but acknowledging that this conversation can reek of a bit of, I suppose, selfishness and potentially a lack of perspective and things of that nature. And I hope it hasn't come across that way at all. I mean, ultimately, we're all really passionate 40k players and hobbyists and gamers, or whatever you want to call it. And, these tournaments represent a lot more to us than just, the competitive side of it. It's the community. It's the a way that we get to kind of express ourselves and enjoy what we're doing and what we're invested in together. It's mad to say it to those who don't understand or appreciate it, but it is a really important part of our kind of social calendar as much as anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've won a couple of tournaments over the years. I do all right, but I don't attend tournaments to win them. I attend tournaments just to play the game that I enjoy playing, meet new people, get new ideas, and hopefully play the better players because you learn more from playing those guys. But primarily it's the social aspect. You cannot be a good weekend away with some like-minded individuals and a few beverages.
Only a few, eh?
Well, 9 or 10, something like that.
Your TOing of Beachhead was getting more and more spectacular as the Saturday went on, mate. It was good stuff.
Well, that's why you have a good old team. You put like 7 or 8 people around you so that you can.
You were somewhat rather sluggish on the Sunday, if I remember.
Yeah, wasn't ideal. I probably won't do that next year.
Yeah, well, mate, look, at the end of the day, if I was in your position, I'd probably find myself doing something similar, because I think the thing is like, it was going really well, and I think, ultimately you were just enjoying the fruits of your labour, right?
Absolutely. A lot of work went into it, and but I think it was about might have been game 2, but probably game 3. We were halfway through the event, everything was going quite well. All the other judges and guys were doing a pretty decent job. We had no issues, and I just thought, what, I'm going to have a couple of pints.
Yeah, it's time to fall off this wagon.
Let's see if we can spice this up a bit. That's what I thought.
Yeah. It was good, mate. Look, I mean, that jokes aside, though, mate, I genuinely felt like you did a great job, and I am really hopeful that we'll get to do it again in February. Because I think it was a really, really great event, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. I
mean, I think it will happen again. Whether or not it's in February, I don't know. Just depends on where we are with the rules.
Yeah, it is what it is, mate. I mean, at the end of the day, the longer we have to wait, the more the more I'll enjoy it when it comes back around again. Or maybe the problem is maybe it will take so long that I'll build it up in my head that it'll never live up to the expectations anymore, Yeah.
Well, who knows? But there's a long way to go. Hopefully we get there. Whether or not it happens in February, I don't know. But it will definitely happen, I think. I can't imagine we won't be having a Beachhead next year unless it is forbidden.
Understood. Brilliant.
So, I'm sure we'll get there.
Awesome. All right, mate. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to talk us through all of that. Again, I mean, appreciate the point I was kind of getting to before is, again, we are all very keen to get back out there and playing games with each other, but at the same time, obviously, we respect and understand that we need to do it responsibly. So none of us here are advocating that you should be out there playing games irrespective of the rules and all the rest of it. Look, I mean, obviously stay sensible, stay safe, and don't get out there and play games unnecessarily. At the end of the day, they're fun and enjoyable, but we all need to have some perspective when it comes to that stuff, and we definitely do. So
there are more important things in the world.
Absolutely. But regardless, we're all really excited about the prospect of getting back to it in the not too distant future, and yeah, hopefully when it's safe to do so, we'll be able to do it. But yeah, really appreciate the insight. Thank you very much for that, mate. And we're going to move on now to whatever it is that comes next.
The Lookout Sir, King of the Character Tournament.
So it's time now for the final of our first round entries in our first ever King of the Characters Tournament. And I can be referring only to the mighty, the exceptionally powerful and incredible combat specialist of the Tau Empire, Commander Farsight, going against some orc war boss that no one really cares too much about, who goes by the name of Ghazghkull THRAKA. But before we talk about the characters, let's remind ourselves, everybody, of the rules.
The rules. The KOTC Tournament is a single elimination ladder tournament. Both characters start the engagement 24 inches away. Both characters must move their full distance towards the enemy. There is no advancing, no stratagems, and for the purposes of this tournament, the characters are assumed to be in battle-forged armies. There is no falling back. May the best character win.
So there we go. Now that we are once again familiar with the rules of the KOTC, it now, only makes sense that we introduce the characters and their prospective players. So starting out is show guest Adam, and his character of today, not of his own choosing, admittedly, but Commander Farsight. How are you feeling, Ad?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm not sure this communist fish man has much of a chance, but
I mean, he's potentially going to have some chance, because representing Ghazghkull THRAKA is renowned KOTC loser Joe Coles.
Well, I was hoping I was going to go for the easy win on this one, just for a bit of a confidence booster, but now, not so confident.
Are you feeling it? Are you thinking the luck will be against you once again?
It's like when you revise for 48 hours straight for like the world's easiest test, and then get there, and then have a brain hemorrhage. It's that's what's going to happen. Like, I will just lose all control of my faculties in the next 5 minutes, and then lose immediately.
I mean, in some ways, Ghazghkull is a good representation of that. What with his big kind of metallic skull plate, right?
I know. So it could all go horribly wrong.
I mean, where you're involved, Joe, it's always a possibility.
Yes, they will, or like my internet will just completely crash on me.
That wouldn't matter though, isn't it, Joe? Because obviously we're rolling these dice together.
Yes, we're sat in the same room,
irrespective of all that stuff we just said about COVID and being responsible.
Yeah, but it's like a sports hall, and we're throwing dice into a bucket.
Is it like when at Warhammer World, they used to have those big jumbo dice that they rolled around for?
Yeah, when they had big Titan matches, they'd use their big Titan dice.
How did we all travel to this sports hall that we're not supposed to be in?
Personal helicopter with no pilot, like a giant drone.
Is that essential travel? I guess it is.
It definitely
is. Because we can't do this work from home.
I mean, conveniently, we're all. It's all on our collective doorsteps. It's sort of a weird sort of TARDIS effect. Almost.
Yeah, we actually live in a cul-de-sac together.
In a way, I kind of wish.
How many lies do you want to tell?
I kind of wish
make up some more mad stuff.
Well, I kind of wish that actually could be our reality, though, right? We could be like the guys on Tabletop Tactics, right? We could have a great time all living in the same place together.
Yeah, it would be brilliant.
That could be our future. Would you want to be part of that future, Adam?
Moving to Bath.
Well, no, maybe not necessarily moving to Bath, but we could, we could all get houses on the same road somewhere.
Oh yeah, why not?
And then we could petition to change the name of the road to some kind of universally 40k related things. Mm. And all of our gardens would be poorly maintained because we're all pretty rubbish when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
Surely our Warhammer widows would look after it.
Well, exactly. They'd all, commune together. It'd be a wonderful thing,
they'd start a committee on how much they all hate the hobby and our toy soldiers.
Exactly. Becomes compounded. Or maybe they're enjoying more when they all get to kind of come together and say, ooh, our silly men.
Yeah. Or complain. But it's more, you say, ooh, our silly men, but it's like, oh, our silly men.
Exactly.
God.
There you go. Would you be up for that, Phil?
Every day.
Well, sounds like living the dream.
I thought you were about to say that sounds like a living hell.
Well, that's the honest answer.
That is
It's definitely one of them.
Well, exactly. It's a potential nightmare, if not anything else. I mean, Phil, in this contest, you're going to be our observer, right? You're going to be our timekeeper or something of that nature.
Yeah, I was thinking about being a cheerleader for Team Fish, but I think I'm just setting myself up for disappointment. So I think I'm going to have to back the big boy, Mr. Joe Coles.
Are you going to back big boy Joe Coles? I mean, to be fair, this continues in your ongoing trend. You've often sided with Joe in all of his contests.
Well, you have to. He's the underdog.
He is.
You know what? For a second, I thought he was going to be a big boy, Mr. Ghazghkull THRAKA. He's a bit of a big boy, but no. Just got another little dig in there against Joe.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was the joke.
This is why I cry myself to sleep every night.
Oh.
That's why he's out there putting himself on all sorts of different shows. Otherwise, he's got to try and... They treat him with respect in those places, not like here.
How long for, though? How long for?
Well,
Statistically, someone's got to love me.
Well, exactly. I suppose it's more to do with how long those things last, as opposed to how long they start going at show.
Shade flying show.
Joe Katona. Anyway, why don't you start out, Adam, telling us about Commander Farsight? What's he got? What's he about? What's his warlord traits, and so on and so forth?
What's he got? He's got a dislike of Ethereals.
Oh, yes, he didn't enjoy them, did he? Thus creating the Farsight enclaves.
Yeah, that's the only thing I recall. And he likes red, because they go faster. Oh, no, that's the Orcs.
That is the Orcs, yeah, that is his
It's
thing.
red. And red makes them better when they're closer to you.
That is pretty good. I mean, do you want to take us through his stat line, mate? Tell us about his movement, weapon skill, ballistic.
Yeah, so he is a mighty movement 8. He's weapon skill 2, which is very good for a Tau. He's ballistic skill 2, which is also very good for a Tau. He's strength 5, which is very good for a Tau. He's toughness 5, wound 6, attacks 4, leadership 9, and save 3+. He also has a shield generator, which gives him a 4+ vulnerable save. He has a fancy high-intensity plasma rifle, which is rapid fire 1, strength 6, AP -4, flat 2 damage, range 30. And he also has the red Dawn Blade. It's just the Dawn Blade, but whatever. The Dawn Blade, which is +3 strength, making him strength 8, AP -4, and D3 damage. And in this instance,
as Tau goes,
pretty much,
he sounds pretty reasonable from a fighty perspective.
he's not awful. I mean, he's better with lots of mates in various.
I'm amazed that he's only got 6 wounds, though. That is a bit of a shocker to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, 6 wounds seems appropriate.
Tau commanders, yeah. I mean, it's a Primaris captain 6 wounds. That's pretty normal, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems pretty normal for a commander of the Tau.
Oh, I thought it was pretty low.
Well,
I think Shadow's done 6 wounds as well. I think. In fact, she is only 5.
Yeah, and she's gotten big now, hasn't she? She's gotten chunky. She's got 4 arms.
She's got a bigger. She has not got 4 arms. She's got bigger guns on her arms.
Oh, has she not? It looks like she's got 4 arms.
Yeah.
But she looks like she's got arms coming out of arms.
She's got weapons coming out of arms.
Yeah.
With arm-like appearances. Are you telling me those aren't arms?
I can assure you they're not arms.
Oh, I don't know, flipping it.
I've got the model in front of me.
Are you sure you've just not assembled it wrong?
Oh, it's not actually assembled yet. I'm looking at the box.
Exactly. You're missing some arms, mate.
It's-
That's what's happened there.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can come back to us and tell us once you put it together how many arms it has.
I mean, it's definitely 2 arms.
Okay, all right. I'll take your word for it. Although, let the record state I disagree. I think there must be 4. Anyway, moving on. So, what abilities does Farsight boast?
What abilities does Farsight boast?
What's
he
got?
boasts he has the Master of War ability, which is 0 use in this event, this particular thing, because I believe the rules for this are you have to move.
You do, yes.
He also has he can do that twice, which is obviously doubly useless in this particular scenario. And he has the Way of the Short Blade, which is reroll rolls of 1 for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Farsight Enclave units that are within 6 of him, and reroll hits rolls of 1 for range weapons as well. Against orc units within 6.
There you go. See, almost like he doesn't like orcs.
Yeah, he doesn't like orcs. Unfortunately, it's not going to matter much this time round. But
he's got a grudge against Ghazghkull potentially.
He doesn't like green things.
That's understandable.
But he likes the red ones. Yeah,
it makes sense. I mean, what's his warlord trait, mate? Do you even know?
I do not have his warlord trait to hand. Well, I can. Hang on, let me.
It's fine. I have the codex here. I can.
So have I.
Oh, have you? Okay, fine.
Who will get there first?
So Farsight Enclave, Heroes of the Enclave is his warlord trait. Have you got there as well?
No.
Okay. Do you want me to start saying it?
Yeah, you can do it. Oh, it's heroic intervention within 6. Also, not much use.
Yeah. So again, something that isn't.
I don't know. What if Ghazghkull fails a 5-inch charge, and then you could heroically intervene into him?
That is true. That would be a first time that's happened.
Yeah.
Would that be a good thing? I guess it would.
You'd want a round of shooting before you went.
But then you've got to charge and then receive the overwatch of your 12 shotgun. I don't know.
What gun does he have?
Rapid fire 1, range 30, strength 6, -4, flat 2 damage.
Irritatingly as well for him, that means that within the rules of this, once he moves his 8, he'll be 16 away, which is precisely not enough to rapid fire as well, which by 1 inch, which is
by 1 inch, yeah.
Which is
well, he can't advance. Well, he could advance.
There's no advancing, no.
Oh, no advancing. Yeah.
But he does have the the aggressive footing when resolving attack made with ranged weapons.
If Ghazghkull goes first, which hopefully he will, and then Farsight move, maybe I'll get to rapid fire at least once.
Yeah. Well, according to this, the enclaves in the Greater Good, you treat when you're firing within a range of 12 inches, you treat the enemy unit as having 1 more marker light on it than it does. So you would have 1 marker light on Ghazghkull for shooting.
Do you know what 1 marker light does, Dan?
Does it? Good. Well, that's handy then.
Yeah, because I've already got that.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, fine. So he's not necessarily doing too well in terms of abilities on this front.
This is not his particular niche.
I mean, at least the guy he's up against isn't a combat monster with loads of abilities that amplify that combat. I mean, that would just be crazy, wouldn't it, Joe?
That would be redonkulous. And it would be unfair. It would almost as if you'd set it up in such a way that these two would fight each other in this crazy, crazy world.
I mean, there was a certain amount of setup involved in this, in as much as I put their names in a hat and they came out against each other. But I mean, yeah, I know how you question every bit of this process. Like, there's no single part of the organisation of this KOTC that you agree with.
But it's all madness.
You don't like the characters I've selected. You don't like the order in which they appear. I mean, the mutiny is unbelievable.
I think the next one we do. It should
Joe
be
thinks
characters.
it's conspiracy again, obviously.
He does,
yeah. I think the next one we do should be characters that we make ourselves.
Characters that we make ourselves? What, just made up ones?
So we make we've got 150 points to spend or whatever.
All right, okay.
We choose a HQ option and make a character out of that.
I mean, it's just going to end up everyone being bloody Angel Smash captains, isn't it?
Exactly. And I mean, this is the thing, Joe. You can't just start derailing this process when we're really, really far through it. I mean,
that's what I'm good at.
Mate, you're supposed to be towing the line and be, on the PR spiel. You're supposed to be positively representing this situation.
Question everything. Rules are just guidelines. They're there to be broken.
Are you one of those people that thinks that 5G's causing coronavirus?
He has said that on a few occasions, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless of that, come on, Joe. Let's talk about Ghazghkull. What's Ghazghkull got going on for him?
Ghazghkull, the great failure of Armageddon, wades in on this one. So he's got 12 wounds, which means he's got a degrading stat profile. But his top line is movement 7, Private skill 2, Blizzard skill 5, strength 7, toughness 7, 12 wounds, 5 attacks, leadership 8, 2 up save. He's got Mork's Roar, which is a 36-inch range, assault 12, strength 5 -1 gun.
It's just over the top, isn't it?
It's got an assault 12 heavy bolter. Then he's got Gork's Claw, which is a melee weapon, times 2 strength, so he's strength 14, -4 flat 4 damage. And if he's feeling a little bit fruity, he's got a 6-inch range stick bomb, which is D6.
Straight free. No way. I mean,
nothing.
Yeah. Lovely.
You're never going to use it. He's got Here We Go, which means he can re-roll charges, Mob Brawl, and Daka. So Daka basically means on a roll of a 6, automatically he gets to make shots again for those shots.
Yep.
He's got the Great Warg. Friendly Orc infantry units within 6 of this model can be chosen to charge with, even if they advance this turn. In addition, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of models with the friendly Orc infantry units whilst they're within 6 of this model, if they are made the charge move this turn. So if he charges, he then becomes...
He doesn't have infantry.
Yeah, he
doesn't have infantry. That's all right then.
Yeah, I was about to point that out, but I was hoping that Adam wouldn't have crashed it before you made that triumphant point, so you would have looked even more silly. But you know, it's still relevant. Yes.
Whatever, I can't read. And then he's got the boss is watching when a friendly Orc unit within 6 of this model fails morale test, which doesn't matter. Then he's got Prophet of Gork and Mork. This model has a 4+ invulnerable save. In addition, this model can only lose a maximum of 4 wounds in each phase. Good thing those tower are really good at psychic, shooting, and combat, isn't it?
It is very fortunate for them, for sure.
Yeah, and then Goff's is the best. Reroll to hit rolls of 1 for attacks made for melee weapons by models in friendly Goff Orc units.
Of which he is one.
So he's hitting on 2s with those 5 attacks. And when he degrades, he gets more attacks. So it goes 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
And he's got the Grand War Boss. I've added in the Grand just to make it sound more orky. This model can be included in an orc attachment. Blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter because we're not doing attachments. He's a Goth, which means he's got exploding 6s in combat.
Which is roll extra hits as opposed to automatically generated.
Yeah. Roll extra hits, which hit on 2s, re-rolling 1s. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Extra hits.
And 6s, but his Warlord trait gives him an extra attack when he charges.
No,
right?
just gives him an extra attack. Yeah.
Yeah, so he starts off with 6 attacks.
Although caveat, we are basing that Warlord trait off of Codex Orcs' Goth Warlord trait. We do not. None of us have. The Beast Rises, or whatever it's called. What was the name of the book this came from?
That one.
The Saga of the Beast, that's the words, isn't it? None of us have that book because Games Workshop haven't sent it to any of us yet, despite some of us having ordered it. So, yeah, we're waiting on that. But we got the rules from the community site, and we're assuming that they haven't changed the Goth Warlord trait from Codex Orcs. If they have, and Ghazghkull has a different one, apologies for that continuity error, but based on where we're at the moment, we're assuming that he's got the same Warlord trait as he did in Codex Orcs. So hopefully he does. But bar that, everything else sounded accurate. So there you go. I mean, Phil, you're still confident with your pick? You're not going to change your mind at all and reconsider the virtues of Commander Farsight?
I think I'm gonna stick with my bet this time.
Fair enough.
Gonna put down a 50 on it on Jay.
Ooh, 50.
50. That's my
50
confidence.
pence? 50 pounds?
It depends on whether I win or not. I'll let you know afterwards.
I'll let you know afterwards. Fair enough, fair enough. All right, brilliant. Well, look, there you go. I think, ultimately, Ghazghkull's a super interesting character, right? Because I think Ghazghkull is really well made for this type of environment. He's just a super fighty, super killy guy. But it's not to say that Farsight is an absolute out and out no hoper. I just think it's probably very, very unlikely.
I think if in the real world of gaming versus a Tau army, he wouldn't have much of a chance.
Oh, what's that, Gaz?
Yeah, because
Do you think so?
he might have 4 wounds left by the time he gets into combat.
I think the thing is with Gaz is he's very, very slow, and he can't benefit from abilities like the jump, and he can't obviously get into any vehicles or do anything.
You can put him in the teleporter.
Can you put him in the teleporter?
Well, you can put a bloody Ghazghkull in there. What's it called? You can put a Stomper in a teleporter, so I assume you can put Ghazghkull THRAKA in there.
No, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, potentially there's an option there for Orc players, but yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? My theory has been on Ghazghkull THRAKA up to this point is he's a lot of points in an army that doesn't usually spend a lot of points on one thing. And although he does give you a load of really great buffs, and when he does get stuck in, he's going to be a nightmare to deal with. I don't know. I mean, he seems relatively balanced at 265.
He's movement 7 as well, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's no slouch. I mean, he can definitely get around, especially with like running and things like that, I guess, or advancing rather. But yeah, we'll see. But anyway,
there is a way to get advance and charge, isn't there?
There is for I think that's also Orc infantry only.
Right.
I think that's just the standard WAR rule, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
There's something else in it where you can. There's definitely, I know the thing you're talking about. There is definitely an advanced charging in there somewhere, but who knows? Anyway, there you go. Ghazghkull THRAKA quite likely to do quite well here, but we'll discover. We will find out as we move on now to round 1.
Round 1.
So we didn't remember to do this before we started round 1, but as is tradition, we need to do the roll to see who's going first. So Adam, as our guest, you get to pick higher or lower, 4+ or 3 and under.
I will go with 3 and under.
All right, here we go. It's a 2. Adam and Commander Farsight will begin the proceedings. So Adam,
by letting Joe go first, that's all right, isn't it?
I mean, you could let Joe go first if that's what you want to do.
It would be a KOTC first.
Exactly. This is uncharted territory. I mean,
So
you will
I've
have
got
to go,
to no chance. I want rapid fire shots, so.
but you will have to go first in the following round.
Yeah. Oh.
There's
Because
that
best of 3.
best of 3, mate. You see.
Oh gosh, that's fine. That's fine.
You're
'Cause
right,
I'll only
are you?
do first once. Yes.
All right. So Joe, you're going first, buddy, and now you get to move 7 inches. Off you go.
Way.
There you are. Boop, boop, boop. Moved across. And now you've got 12
shots.
12 shots for some absolutely insane reason. So are you ready to roll 12 dice there, Joe?
I am, yes. Hitting on 5s. Because orcs.
Because orcs. Here we go. So presently, you have got 2
He's got 2
6s.
extra shots.
You've got 2 6s.
They've got to re-roll 1s as well. Or is that just in combat?
No, you don't.
Do you reroll once?
No,
Take
he
that roll.
doesn't. No, none of that. Only in combat.
Only in fighting, Joe, apparently.
Oh.
So far, you've actually only got 4 hits, but you've got an extra 2 bonus hits, so let's see, or bonus shots, so let's see what those give you.
That is exactly average.
So there you go, 5 hits, mate. That ain't bad by any stretch of the imagination.
Awful.
So this is strength 5 against toughness 5, right, Adam?
He is indeed toughness 5.
There you go. So you needed 4s, Joe. You feeling confident?
Yeah. I'm expecting 2, maybe.
All right, then. How about you?
Ooh, 3.
3 wounds on old Farsight. What's the save on Farsight? 3+, right?
He's 3 up and 4 up, so 4 up, yeah.
3 4-up saves. Not a great start for Farsight there. 2 wounds on the profile. He's down to 4 already, just from shooting attacks. And obviously, Ghazghkull is presently 17 inches away, so unable to charge at this moment in time. So now it falls to dear old Farsight to move his 8 inches towards him.
I have to go my full 8, right?
You have to go your full 8, mate, unfortunately. That's how this works. So now you're 9 away from him. Are you feeling confident?
Oh, absolutely. So now I can rapid fire with me bad plasma gun.
With your bad plasma gun. Can you overcharge that plasma gun?
Tau aren't allowed to overcharge.
No, they have no fun, do they, Tau?
It's overcharging is for capitalists.
Nah, fair enough. So you're going to be hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, right?
Absolutely.
There you go. It's 2 hits, mate. It's a promising
It's
start.
2 hits. And it's straight 6. And what's Mr. THRAKA's toughness? Is it 7 or something stupid?
7.
It is 7, yes. It is 7.
Cracking. That's 5.
So 5s. That's 2 3s, had.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's no good.
That's not quite what you wanted.
So now I need an 8-inch charge, right?
Well, you're 9 inches away, so you need a 9 there, because 7 plus the 8 will give you 15. 15 minus 24 is 9. So yeah, 9. So here it goes.
Got to get within 1 inch to get within that.
Well, you're on 7, mate, so it
doesn't matter. It's a moot point.
But you know what that means?
Watch,
Ghazghkull's got 12 shots at you. Off they go. Oh, he only hit. No, he only hit twice.
4 times. 4 times.
Why 4 times?
He's on 5s, isn't he? Oh, Overwatch.
Overwatch,
yes.
mate. Come on now. Do you even know the rules?
Yeah, with those 6s, I get more shots, don't forget.
I've not forgotten, Joe. Here you go. No.
Oh.
No. But you're going to be wounding on 4s, right, Joe?
Yep.
Oh, 1 wound. 1 4-up save. How do you feeling confident at this moment in time?
No.
Oh, you made it though, mate.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. Just delaying the inevitable.
Right.
So now handing over to Joe. Ghazghkull
I
gets
will move to a whole 1 inch away.
Exactly.
Plop, plop, plop.
Plop, 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 plop. And now...
And we shoot you 12 times, point blank range.
Off it goes!
Hey.
You're not allowed to be
only 1 hit.
Only 1 hit.
There.
It is a 6.
It is a 6.
So I get to make another attack.
Exactly. I'm starting to understand Joe's concerns with this legitimate dice rolling process. So yeah, 1 wound.
That's the extra. You got.
1 hit, and then
1 hit.
Roll to wound.
Force a wound.
It's not a wound. But good news, he's gonna charge.
Well, I'm gonna Overwatch the first.
Oh yeah, do you want to resolve the Overwatch first, do you?
Yeah. Well, might as well.
Might as well. Here we go.
6s.
Reroll the 1.
Reroll the 1. Sorry. Yeah.
No.
Don't worry about that.
Nothing. So Joe, you got a 1 inch charge to make. You feeling confident?
Not massively.
All right. Well, let's see what it comes out.
If anyone can mess this up, Joe. No.
It was only a 6, but a 6 is all you needed. So Ghazghkull now is firmly in the driver's seat. He's there in the face of our friend.
I hope everyone listening at home has enjoyed this.
But he's only got 6 attacks at this moment in time.
Oh well, yeah. How many wounds have I got left?
4.
4. Oh, how much damage does your claw do, Joe?
Only 4.
Only 4.
Oh,
It should be absolutely fine. So hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, right, Joe?
Yeah, exploding 6s.
Oh, exploding 6s. Of course.
Extra hit.
Well, it's all hit, and then you've got an extra attack. So let's see what that gets you. Oh, that's also a hit. What a shocker. So 7 hits.
7 hits.
At strength
14. So I'm wounding on 2.
Yeah.
Wounding on 2s, yeah. Okay, fair enough. Let's see how that goes. Oh, okay, so you didn't wound once,
That
though.
was fun.
You didn't wound once.
I'll roll 6 more pluses.
Totally
Drama.
doable, mate. I think you're going to do this.
Well,
I have faith in you.
But, I mean, that's a
Oh no, that's 3 1s. That's not good.
That's not a great start. 3 1s and a 3. 4
So
and a
he's
5.
just taken 12 damage. Oh no, sorry, he's taken 16 damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hopeful, is it?
Well, he's dead.
He's very much
He's
dead.
not. He's not walking home after that, is he? He's.
What little remains of him is now just sort of particles of blood and other nonsense. Just, you know.
Whatever like little rebel escapade Farsight was leading, it's done.
It's done.
Finished.
It's over.
Apart from, we've got to do this nonsense one more time just to make sure.
Well, potentially 2 more times if Farsight wins.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally possible. Well, Phil, what was your feelings on that? You thinking you've backed the right man here?
Yeah.
I'm
feeling confident now.
Is that sum of money, the 50 represented, more likely to become pounds now?
Yes, £50,000.
Oh!
Of real money or Monopoly money? This is cold, hard cash.
I'll let you know after the next one.
Right then.
Phil only operates in Monopoly money these days. It's difficult times. Consider being a patron of Beyond the Tabletop, eh? Anyway, right, moving on to round 2.
Round 2.
Right, and after that incredible display by Ghazghkull there, it is now Adam's turn to go first, mate. So please proceed by moving 8 inches.
Jetpacky noise. What's that like? And then I've landed.
Some horrible wheezing.
Yeah.
It's like the
honest,
jetpack from the James Bond film, from Russia with Love.
What did that sound like, Joe?
Where's that weird little crash helmet on?
Yeah, but what did it sound like?
I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't watched it.
Sounded a lot like a ghost, actually.
Oh yes, potentially. Joe,
You're not boring. You're not tricking me into that one.
You did well alone.
Shot.
It's happened to. I got in trouble the first time with the police.
Anyway, you got one shot. Let's see how that goes for you.
Police, and there's a goat next door. Yeah, one shot.
Hit it on 2s, re-rolling 1s.
Hit it on 2s. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great start. You rolled a 1, but you get to re-roll that, so that's a positive beginning. Hey, it's a hit. Well done, mate.
That's it. Yeah.
Feeling confident about this 5 up to wound?
No, not really.
Okay, well, let's see what happens. It's only a bloody wound, mate.
Oh, 4+ save on the old Mr. THRAKA.
There we go. 4 up invulnerable save, Joe. You feeling confident on that front?
Oh, 100%.
All right. Well, let's see what the result is. It's a 1. I was gonna say
It's a 1.
They are. THRAKA's taken 2 wounds.
I could do 2 more wounds this turn. I mean, I'm allowed to, but I can't. No,
He's down to 10, mate. I mean, it's
and
unbelievable.
I'm 22 inches away. Unfortunately,
no charges. So Ghazghkull now is going to march forwards 7. Joe?
Yep. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Stompy stomp.
I love how unenthusiastic you are about the movement noises these days. You got to put some effort in. Go on, he's moving forward 7.
Whoosh! He's really fast.
what's he whooshing for?
He's got skates on.
He's got skates on. He sort of does, I suppose. And then so you've got your 12 shots to resolve, Joe.
He goes. Brrr.
There you are. So 12 shots. Feeling good about this?
Exceptionally.
All right.
Well.
Only 1 6.
But
Wait,
2
2
5s.
2 5. So 3 hits thus far. Will this 6 become another hit?
Explode.
Let's discover. It's another 6, which it doesn't itself generate another 6. So 4 hits all in, wounding on 4s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 3. 3 wounds.
What's going on there? Yeah, 4 up saves.
Totally doable. Totally doable. Only 1 went through. There you go. You're down to 5, mate.
Safe.
Joe, can you make this impressive charge, you feel?
What is it? 8 inches, isn't it?
Something along those lines.
All right,
Let me
mate.
do the mental arithmetic again.
Yeah, he was 22 apart, wasn't he? So I moved 8, and then
Yeah, so 9 inches apart. Yeah. So 9.
Yeah. Do I get a reroll? Don't orcs get a reroll as well?
I don't think Ghazghkull does he?
He does. Got here we go.
Oh.
He gets you roll one or both.
Oh, I've gotta consult the manual. Hang on.
All orcs get to reroll their charges, don't they?
All right. Well, let's see what happens then. Do you want to do the Overwatch first or after the Joe's roll?
No, we'll definitely do the Overwatch now.
All right, here we go.
He might kill him.
Shot.
So 2 shots.
Hitting on 6s.
He missed, mate.
Don't worry about it.
All right. Okay. Fine. And now, Joe, you ready for this charge?
Whoosh.
Whoosh.
Right.
It's a 10. All right, well, there you go. So he's got 6 attacks, and these will be hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, right, Joe?
Yep. Exploding 6s.
With exploding 6s to add to the fun. So he's got 2 extra potential hits. Let's see.
Potential.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see what those do. Oh, he missed one of them.
But
But he did, in fact, hit. So that is 8 hits. That's pretty reasonable. And he's now going to be wounding on 2s. Oh, a lot of 1s there.
4 1s.
4 1s. So now we need some miraculous 4-up invulnerable saves by Farsight.
He passes 3 of them.
Farsight's alive on 1 wound.
Farsight gets to attack back.
How many attacks has he got, mate? 4?
He's got 4.
Ghazghkull's about to be in trouble here. Here it goes.
2s. Rerolling 1s.
Rerolling 1s.
Because he's a naughty orc.
So everything is hit. What's he going to be wounding on?
He is going to be wounding on his strength 8, so he'll be wounding on 3s.
Wounding on 3s. Does he re-roll these?
He rerolls 1s to wound, maybe?
Yeah,
Let's throw him a bone. I'm sure he does. Here we go. Here he goes.
Throw him a sympathy.
Reroll that one.
We've got 4.
It's
wounds.
4 wounds on the THRAKA. What's the...
Minus 4.
Wow, 4-up invuln.
THRAKA's taken 2 more wounds there. It's flat damage 2 or 3 for the Dawnblade?
It's D3 damage.
D3? Oh, it could be. It could be a mighty 3. No, it's a 2. So he's taken 4 damage now. That's pretty reasonable.
Not bad.
Only 8 to go.
There you go. Well, now it's your turn again, Farsight, so you get to attack him again, mate.
Can he shoot his guns in combat?
I should be able to. I've got fly. I think I should be able to leave and shoot and then come out.
I mean, we could make that as a token thing, though you will have to take the Overwatch again.
I mean, I'm not sure it matters.
Let's just stick to the rules and do the 4 attacks in combat.
To be honest, though, you're actually better at hurting him in combat than you are at shooting.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Let's see how it goes out. Here you go. You ready to roll?
I am, yeah.
Here we are.
I'm excited.
So you missed twice, but don't worry, you can always re-roll those. And you hit with all of them, and you're wounding on freeze.
Yeah. Rerolling once.
Rerolling once. So 1 has failed to wound. The 1 has now become a 2 as well. So only 2 wounds. 2 4-up invulnerable saves, Joe. You got this right? You're under control?
I hope I should fail 1.
You should fail 1. By the maths. But you failed both.
I failed both.
2d3 damage.
2d3 damage.
To a maximum of 4.
Oh my god, he's done 5, which actually becomes 5.
Right. Yeah. He's down to 4 wounds. This is incredible.
He's down to 4 wounds, is Gaz.
He's down to 4 wounds, but that does mean that he now has 7 attacks.
Phil was going to say something insightful, I feel. What's that?
I know. I feel like Joe's letting me down here. I put big money on him, and now...
Don't worry, Phil. Your money's safe.
I don't have to dig out that Monopoly box anytime soon.
So 7 attacks from Gaz. Here we go. If Farsight lives this, although are we going to say that if Farsight is about to die, that we let him do his sacrifice?
Yeah.
Well, it only causes 1 more wound. So it's just not enough.
Okay. Well, let's see what happens. So Joe, you're hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s.
Yep.
It's totally going well. So
there's 2 6s in there as well.
Oh yeah, good. So 2 1s and 2 6s. We'll start.
Re-roll the 1s first.
Yeah, we'll start out by re-rolling the 1s first. So there's actually 3 6s in there. Yeah, good. So let's see if those 6s become extra hits. Oh, you missed one of them, but don't worry, I'm sure that'll be resolved in a second. Yep, fine.
Yeah, so that's 10 hits.
10
That's
hits.
10 hits. Yeah.
Wounding on 2s.
I mean, we could literally put a Knight Crusader against Ghazghkull. Still kill it.
So wounding on 2s.
Yeah.
Just the one. Just the
So
one.
it's nine 4-up inlands now, please.
9 4-up inbounds.
Flashes.
Fingers crossed, everybody. I'm feeling lucky. No, he's
Four.
very...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's pitiful.
So he's only taken 28 damage. Like
28 weeks.
it's a bit of
That's
it's just a flesh wound, isn't it?
It's just a flesh wound. I would have loved if he had just been able just to have just survived and put like another few wounds on Kaz. That would have been. But obviously, yeah, I mean that is an insane amount of fighting.
28 wounds.
God Lord. I mean, credit where credit's due to Farsight to getting him down to how far did he take him down to? 4 wounds.
4 wounds, yeah.
I mean, Snow.
I mean, it was a big improvement on the first round, but then it kind of just gets sort of turned around on you, and then you take 28 damage just like that. So.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, man. I mean, like obviously the big man Ghazghkull was always going to be a bit of a monster in any matchup. I mean, again, it's going to be really interesting to see in the upcoming round. So making it through to the second stages is a sermon of the Craftworld Elder, Abaddon of the Black Legion, Marnius Calgar of the Ultramarines, and
Marnius,
now...
I mean, you're going to have to really ramp that up. You need Bobby G in there.
Well, again, because by the rules of the KOTC, we couldn't allow Bobby G in because he's not an HQ choice.
Yeah. I kind of feel like a sermon's now very much out of his depth.
Oh, absolutely. A sermon is totally doomed. But you know, I mean, I think a sermon just got lucky from the matchup perspective because we did that weird grudge thing between him and Drazar.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's anybody who's going to stand up to Ghazghkull. The only one who I guess potentially could, if they got very lucky, is maybe who's the geezer for either the Grey Knight guy with the Storm Shield. What's his name?
Oh, Trajan Valores? No.
No, that's.
No. Sorry, I'm thinking of the great of the.
He's Custodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, it's
he's got a shout.
Yeah. It's
Chapter Master. No, Grandmaster Voldus, and I can't remember his name.
I mean, there's a lot of psychers and other things that could potentially do some work against Gaz. I mean, especially within the Grey Knight range, because obviously they have the combination of not only being good in the psychic phase, but they also are very good in the fight phase.
One of the Catan might be able to do it if they do good on their mortal wounds. But then the problem is they're still only going to be able to do a maximum of 8 damage, and then he turns around and does them for 24, and it's just like.
I think that is the crazy.
You're thinking of Caldor Drago.
Caldor Drago, that's it.
Yeah, that's our lad. I mean, there are definitely some characters out there that have some options against Gaz. I think the thing is with it is Gaz really is he takes an army to kill. I don't think there is probably a single character that stacks up against him. Maybe like Scarbrand from Chaos Demons. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that could be a potential one, but I'm not sure. Really.
I reckon if you put like a Shadow Seer, a Troop Master, and a Solitaire against him, you might be able to do it as a combination of them.
I think there's options. I mean, you could definitely, as an army, deal with him, but yeah, in the one-on-one format, he is an absolute monster. But we'll see. I don't know. Abaddon could potentially make it interesting.
Where's guns are damage 2, damage D3?
What the?
I don't think it. Does it matter? Because Ghazghkull's going to be. He's going to be 2 damage. Abaddon's 8 wounds, isn't he?
Yeah, but he halves all damage.
Yeah. So everything becomes 2 damage. So Ghazghkull's got to wound him 4 times in combat.
Yeah. Although Abaddon's invul's still only 4 up, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
which is a big difference maker in these things. And I think the thing is with but the thing is with Abaddon is he will definitely take the wounds off Gaz every time he fights. It's just he's got to live 3 rounds of combat to get the fighting off. So it's really going to depend on when he goes first, and vice versa. And then obviously the elephant in the room when it comes to Abaddon is if you roll a 1 for that Drakni, you're hurting yourself, which is not going to be helpful. So there's always a little bit of risk reward to him. Whereas Gaz is just consistently amazing.
Yeah.
So we'll see, man. We'll see. I mean, again, it's the interesting element of it, really. I mean, don't get me wrong. When we originally proposed the idea that Gaz was going in as the Orc champion, that's when Ghazghkull THRAKA was. And I suppose we could just go on a little bit of a journey into the past and take a moment to remember what Ghazghkull THRAKA used to be. So, in the olden days of Ghazghkull THRAKA, he was Movement 5, Weapon Skill 2, Ballistic Skill 5, Strength and Toughness 6. He had 8 wounds, 5 attacks, and a leadership of 8. And his custom claw was a -3 flat 3 damage, and his twin big shooter was only Assault 6. And he didn't have a rule where he only took 4 wounds a phase. So he was quite a different character when all this started. But, hey, there you go. Well done, him. Well done, Gaz. You did us proud. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, Adam, for being on the show and for contributing in the segments that you contributed to. It's always a delight to chat to you, mate. So, yeah, cheers for that. Obviously, if anyone wants to learn more about the various things you're doing, they can look up 40k Brawl on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, right?
They absolutely can. The Instagram stuff's got stuff going up because obviously we're all in lockdown, so all the 4 of the guys that contribute to 40k Brawl are sporadically chucking hobby stuff up there. Obviously we're not running many tournaments or any tournaments at the moment because we can't, so there's not much on the Facebook pages, although we are sharing some of the podcasts and content from other pages that we enjoy, just to spread the word. So we often share you guys. We're sharing I think I've shared a link today of the Paulie Stark Elder chat.
The Real Space Raiders?
The Real Space Raiders, yeah.
Absolutely. Not to be confused with a Crisp Enthusiast podcast.
No, or Space Invaders.
Yeah. Well, they're not called Space Raiders. Are they actually called Space Invaders?
Are they called Space Invaders?
I thought they were Space Raiders.
I think so.
Space Raiders is the crisp. Space Invaders is the computer game of years past.
Yeah, I swear that Space Raiders were the crisps.
They are, yeah.
There we go.
I don't know. I've never eaten them.
Well,
never ate.
Maybe you should pitch that, Joe, as an episode idea where you guys should just talk about, old crisps.
Oh, as someone who likes to make a lot of noise in the background, I feel like for the whole hour and a half segment, I should just be eating crisps loudly.
There you go. That would be
Space Raiders.
Yeah, Space Raiders. There you go. You remember them now, Adam?
Well, I remember what they looked like. They had that alien head on the front of the packet, but I always just thought they looked like they were probably pretty bad for you, so I never ate them.
That was very wise of you, Adam. Very wise. But they were only 10p a pack.
Yeah, but that rang more alarm bells to me. I just, when I see something like that, I just think it's not enough money, so it's definitely bad for me. And it's got an alien on the front. And I just didn't. I was always prefer pay 50, 60p for a packet of nice and spicy knickknacks or those the red packet monster.
You can't say that not very nice for you and then imply that nice and spicy knickknacks aren't.
Yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense, but
I mean, nice and spicy are like crack. They are pretty they're pretty damn good. You can't knock them. They might not be the best.
I think. I mean, and I'm sort of jumping in on the tangent thing that you guys do quite a lot, but I think that they changed the recipe for nice and spicy knickknacks about 6, 7 years ago, I'm sure they used to taste different. It's like Oasis. Oasis used to be better when it was in the glass.
They took all the sugar out, I imagine.
Yeah, they probably removed
when
the sugar.
Oasis was in. Do you remember Oasis was in glass bottles and had those little push tops?
Isn't that Orangina?
That was Orangina.
Oasis definitely used to be in glass bottles.
I swear there was a time when you could only, as a child, you could only ever have Orangina when you're on holiday.
It's true.
Yeah.
I was the exact same. We only ever had it when we got on a ferry.
A bit like Capri Sun.
No. Capri Sun was a year-long thing, but
was it a lunchbox thing?
Not for me. My mum used to put one of those really kind of like, terrible beakers which she would fill with weak squash, which would inevitably leak over the sandwiches and give everything a horrible kind of, crappy juice taste. It was awful.
Crappy juice.
Honestly,
Yeah.
my mum made the worst lunchboxes. I mean, I love her, but she ain't much good when it comes to food.
And the squash was always like your parents were rationing it, in case the world ended.
It's true. You didn't get a lot of flavour from that squash. It was like literally like the weakest stuff imaginable.
Did you probably don't know this, but the schools have now banned orange squash. You're not allowed to give your kids juice anymore when you send them to school in their packed lunches. They can only have water.
Why is that?
Because of sugar, apparently.
Because we get given them when we go to Warhammer.
I think it's though. I didn't get this memo. You're not allowed to give sweets or anything, right? And I got an absolute rollicking from the school because I was late. Admittedly, it was my fault. I woke up late, and I ended up getting my daughter to school late. So I ended up just popping into Tesco's and getting her lunch from there, like all cool dads do.
So you got the meal deal, did you?
So she got a meal deal.
She comes in with like a Reese's peanut butter bar and a bottle of Lucozade.
She had like Walker's crisps, a big bottle of like Oasis because she liked it, and she had, like packet of Smarties and like one of those giant grab bags of crisps. And she was like, "You're the coolest dad ever." And then I get a call from her mum that the school have called her and gone mental. And the reason why the school was so upset is because all the other children were jealous, not because I'd given all this like sugar. It's that I'd kind of started a riot because all these other children were going mental.
It's like, why is she allowed to eat normal crisps? It's unbelievable.
The thing is that the school couldn't like not give it to her because she has to eat.
Yeah, of course.
She sat there like royalty, but away from all the other children because she was the one allowed sugar that day.
I can imagine as well within that context, if all these other kids are starved of sugar, they must all be relatively under control. Whereas,
Yeah.
Your
She'd be like a maniac.
Yeah,
She'd turn into Donnie from the Wild Thornberrys, just running around, screaming and screeching.
I mean, accepting that this is probably a part that could be worked into the outro segment, what was the hierarchy for you for like crisps and chocolates at your school? For swapsies, I mean, like there was always the coveted items in every.
Oh,
school.
I never really swapped stuff. I was always that kid that would go to, because when we got collected from this bus stop in our village was next to the sweet shop or the post office, but we just called it the sweet shop because that's the only thing that you ever got from there.
Yeah.
So I was like TJ from Recess. I was the one that had all the cool stuff that everyone wanted.
Where did it all go wrong, AJ? You peaked early, mate. That's the problem.
Yeah, the problem is I was one of those kids forced into labour quite early. Like as soon as I was like the manager of the local pub saw that I was big enough to stand next to a sink to wash plates. He was like, they were like, get him in. Because they only have to pay him like £2 an hour.
I mean, Phil, you're a bit older than myself and Joe. I mean, what was it like in the olden days? Was it all blackjacks and blackjacks?
During the war.
I mean,
chalk.
I mean, I remember having quite often the like ready salted crisps with a little blue sachet for the salt.
Oh, those were the fancy crisps. They were
Were they?
fancy. Yeah.
They are quite fancy, yeah.
Although I think as a kid, you would end up just overly salting your crisps.
They're
barely unedible.
That's how
I take it we're talking pre-Walkers, right? Because Salt and Shake exists now, but they were bought by Walkers, right?
Yes, yeah, the original kind.
As a kid, I always look at those toffs there, like so fancy that they get to salt their own crisps.
Surely the height of luxury is having crisps ready salted, as it were.
Well, no, because it's part of it adds an extra level of enjoyment to your food, doesn't it? Like,
Wasn't there that weird period of time?
Of all the things to get in a packet of crisps, a packet of salt's not like great, is it? Like I'm pretty sure I remember a time when Walkers were doing a thing where they were putting £5 notes in packets.
Yeah, they did them in but they did them in the same blue packets, so they put the salt in.
Yeah.
And like your friends, cousins, uncles, dad's niece, all like that they got the coveted £20 note.
Oh yeah, of course.
Everyone else was just left with the like try again or another free packet of crisps.
Didn't Walkers get done for that though? Because it famously wasn't what they advertised. Like, because like the first place was that you were going to go and shovel pound coins into a dustbin or something. Yeah. It turned out being that no, it's not that. It's just we'll give you some money or something. But anyway,
yeah.
I remember getting a £5 out of a packet of crisps.
But no, it was but for reference, it was the pickled onion Monster Munch was top of our trades. Like if anyone had pickled onion Monster Munch in the school, everyone wanted some of that. You couldn't just watch someone eat pickled onion Monster Munch without
What's
trying
the
to flag
spicy? What's the spicy Monster Munch called? Annoying me.
Is it? I think it's just called spicy.
Flaming hot. That's it.
Oh, flaming hot. That's it. Yeah, there you go. Was that what the kids were eating back when you were at school?
No, I don't really remember much of a crisp.
There's always a crisp hierarchy, mate. Always a crisp hierarchy.
Yeah, I don't know if there was.
No, fair enough.
Well, I just remember kids eating lots of bad sausages. and then I just thought, I don't know, that's a good idea.
Right, we had the refectory, so we could go and buy our own cooked meals and stuff. So then I just had a life of chips, beans, and gravy. That's what I lived on. But the problem is, I'd have to cycle 18 miles to school because I couldn't be bothered to get the bus. So I was stick thin at the time as well.
Well, there you go.
I was lucky.
Thank you, Jamie Oliver, for saving our children from whatever.
Turkey Twizzlers.
Yeah, exactly. From our life of obesity and heart conditions that we are all enduring now. There we go. Well, anyway, we should definitely move on because that was far too long.
That was an epic tangent. Mate.
Yeah, that was. I think because it's at the end of the show, people have got their fill of 40k stuff by now, and they could just.
No one's actually listening to this.
Exactly, and then those who are might enjoy it for the completely cultural irrelevance that it represents. But there you go. We're going to move on now to the end of the show. Transitional noise. Woo! And that's it, everybody. Episode 49 is now in the bag, although not entirely, because obviously there's still this bit at the end where me, Joe, and Phil reflect on the episode's events and broader outside influences and/or things. Apologies to anyone who has already sat through a ramble on types of crisps that we enjoy. I think with that having happened, we'll probably try and keep this quite short and sweet, I imagine, although now I've said that, I can imagine that won't be the case.
Sounds like a test to me.
Well, indeed. Could very well be. That is the last of our weekly episode schedule for now. Obviously, never say never. It could come back to a weekly format in the future, but that's it now for us on a weekly basis. I think certainly myself will breathe a sigh of relief when it comes to that, because it has been quite an extreme schedule. But yeah, Joe, have you got any thoughts and feelings on the fact that, it's no longer going to be weekly?
I'm a little bit sad, just because I needed that excuse to get an extra night's worth of painting in every week.
Does it free you up to go on those other podcasts though?
Oh yeah. But, they're all just a cheap imitation. They'll never be this.
Well,
the magic that we have.
It's been, I mean, it's funny actually, because we are now, so a couple of fun little facts. Obviously, we're approaching the 50th episode, but we're also approaching a 2-year anniversary, gents.
Will I finally get that cake?
I mean, the cake had been purchased, if you recall, but you weren't around to eat it because you didn't bother turning up.
What, to Warhammer Fest?
Yeah. You still owe Richie for that ticket, by the way.
Do I?
Well, of course, yeah, because he bought tickets for all of us, didn't he? 20 quid it was that you owe him.
Oh, I know. So checks in the post.
Well, exactly. Hopefully he doesn't listen this far and, his memory doesn't get jogged.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, so 2-year anniversary. I mean, technically, it really is our 2-year anniversary already because we'd already, or at least by the time this episode comes out, we would have recorded or started recording our test episode. So, yeah, it's pretty much 2 years since we started all this nonsense. So, yeah, it's coming around, which will be quite an exciting little milestone. So, episode 50 I'm really excited about because I think, as much as the 40th episode was a really meaningful milestone given the whole 40k thing, I think in more traditional terms, having made it 2 years and actually gotten to 50 episodes is pretty incredible. I say this a lot, but I never expected us to go more than 5 or 6 episodes before we got bored. So it's quite a miracle in some ways that we kept it going, right?
Yeah, for sure. Considering we haven't really missed a week, with the exception of maybe a bit of a break around Christmas time.
Yeah, there was a reasonable break. Christmas of 2018. I think we had like a 4 or 5 week hiatus before we got back into the swing of it. But even during that period of time, the three of us had a lot of conversations about it, and we kind of came to this consensus where I think that was when we started committing to the fortnightly schedule, and we were basically like, come hell or high water in 2019, we're going to put out an episode every 2 weeks, and we're going to stick to that for a year. And I think that's kind of created the format that we go with, which is to say that come Christmas time, so when December rolls around, myself, Joe and Phil will probably have another conversation where we're like, how are we feeling about this still? Do we want to continue doing it? How angry are our wives and girlfriends that we are still doing this?
Mine's just hanging on in there.
by a thread.
Yeah, by a mental thread.
I mean, without wanting to sort of paint my darling wife in any kind of negative light, because I could never aim to do that. It has definitely
And she's listening.
No, not even because she's listening, just because the fact that
she's listening at the door. That's
exactly. No, but it's definitely been a strain to putting out these weekly episodes because it just takes the thing that recording it is one thing. It's the editing side of things, putting it all together. It takes hours at the other end to get these things up on the internet and writing the descriptions and doing all the other stuff. And even though I've got a number of shortcuts in terms of how I approach it, it still takes time, right? So yeah, she's been incredibly understanding during all of this stuff because, yeah, bizarrely, she often says to her friends or her parents or anyone when talking about how I'm getting on, she's like, he's busier than he was before. I see less of him now that we're locked in a house together than when we were.
That might be for the best, great survival strategy.
Potentially. I mean, it's a good way to keep things interesting, I guess. But no, genuinely, I'm genuinely really, really excited about putting out episode 50. I've got some interesting initial ideas for what we're going to do with it. We've already spoken to Richie about the quiz. We're obviously going to have the next round of the KOTC, which should be really cool. We're going to have the new 40k reveals that are coming out this weekend to talk about, which is really exciting. And then there should be some general nice kind of content that we should be able to put together for everyone, and hopefully it'll be pretty enjoyable for all involved. A celebration of almost 2 years of Lookout Sir 40k, wouldn't you say so?
Yeah,
that's what that is. So that's all coming around. But I mean, otherwise, how's everyone else doing? Are you excited for the 50th milestone, or could you care less?
I'm amazed that we're still there. We've got there.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm amazed that you're still there, Joe.
Just alive in general?
Well, no, just all these offers from these other other bigwigs trying to tempt you away from us.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, they'll offer me all the money in the world, but I'll still come to you unless they offer me like I don't know, 20 grand. Then you're dead to me. But that's fine.
That's fine. 20 grand an episode.
Yes.
I mean, that's reasonable. I mean, to be fair, if someone was offering me 20 grand an episode, I would be gone. I mean, like, you know, although to be fair, Joe, if someone was offering me 20 grand an episode, I'd probably try and negotiate it so as, you know, I would take maybe 15 and split 2.5, or split 5 grand between the two of you.
Yeah, but what if they only wanted you, but not me and Phil?
Well, obviously you would be.
Well, they'd clearly be mad, and they don't know what they're on about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As everyone who actually listens to this show knows, I'm nothing without you guys.
Yeah.
It's all hyperbole and nonsense when without you two. You're the people who actually do this right? You know, you're interested. You read the books, you learn the stuff. You're painting the models. I'm just I'm useless. I know nothing.
So what you're saying is that you're just using me and Phil.
I mean, that's what all good friendships are based on, though, right?
You're using our sexy voices and our beardy faces.
That's it. I mean, in some respects, though, Joe, if we want to be, actually quite specific about stuff, it's been pretty good for you, though, right? I mean, because, your aspiration and expectations of your career and hopes and dreams have always been built around making more of a name for yourself within the hobby and building an actual career where you're able to make money out of this. And...
Oh, yeah, it's all about self-gratification, It's all about, like, me.
Well, but seriously, though, mate, I
out.
mean, the fact that you're embarking upon this new job of yours and everything you're doing in that space, I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I've always, about when I started working for Triple Helix, my general life kind of aspirations were less going to work and being miserable, if that makes sense. It was all about, like, I know I'm never going to be a rich man, so I'm just going to work at a job that I want to be at, you know? And I've just kind
That's
of...
a good mindset.
Yeah, I know that by going to this specific job, I will be unhappy, whereas if I quit that job and work towards this other job, I'll wake up every morning really excited to go to work. So, yeah, I think it's the way to live life.
Where's the road leading though, Joe? Are you heading towards Nottingham? Is that the plan? Are you going to be a GW body before long?
I think we would all love that. For me to be there, that's for sure. But it's all down to whether they would want me, whether I'm any good at it, and whether life guides me in that direction. I might get like 4 or 5 years down the line and be like, my life aspiration now is just to build a 40-foot long wargaming table and just become one of those guys that lives inside a bunker painting small toy soldiers.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean,
if you could pitch a dream job for yourself at Warhammer HQ, what would it be? Like, which job would you go for, given the chance?
I'll tell you what, I would really enjoy doing the Warhammer community job, like Nick Baketum and Wade and all that kind of, like, their area. I think that'd be good.
You could have been doing our social media for Lookout Sir, but you were so bad at it.
Yeah.
We had to give it to Richard.
I know.
So, you could have had it on your CV for 2 whole years of being this great social media person.
But it's the genius of this, though, Phil. He still can. He just has to lie about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
As far as Foreground are concerned, he's he's been doing everything by himself for years.
That's true.
I always refer to it as my podcast.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's the Joe Cole show. That's how it's always been, mate.
I'm like, oh yeah, but what about my podcast? My podcast's really successful.
Yes, indeed.
The guys on my podcast do an excellent job at making me sound good.
It's true. To be fair, Phil
we're
kind
just
of...
your co-hosts.
Phil gave it that treatment when he was on 40k Today, though. Did you hear that?
No, I was so upset. I thought that I'm just going to cry for 10 minutes instead.
Are you saying I made out it was my podcast?
You definitely did.
Lies. I did not.
You totally. It's fine, mate. It's fine because it is your podcast. It's our podcast, and when presenting it externally, it's yours. I mean, that's the thing. There's no hierarchy here. Sure, I'm the guy who talks a lot, and I'll beat that bit out in a second. But sure, I'm the guy who talks a lot. But this is and pays for everything. Obviously, I mean, let's not forget that bit. But that's a moot point. It's ours, and I'm really grateful. And again, one of the things that always amazes me is when I look at like the people who follow us and the friends that I've made from doing this and the people that we've reached and how we've influenced them and everything that's kind of been positive and lovely as a result of that. And I think that's really great. It's like, I'm always really grateful when people out there who listen to us and enjoy what we do reach out to us and, tell us about how much this has sort of influenced them or how much we've helped them through the hobby. It means a lot, It's why, honestly, it's why I have had a renewed sense of purpose with this over the last year. Because it's reasonable to assert that a year ago, I was in a bit of a rut with it. I was definitely feeling like this was going nowhere, that this wasn't something that I really wanted to keep on doing. I was struggling to hit those deadlines, and it was becoming more and more of a chore. But then I think very quickly, it just sort of turned a corner, and yeah, I'm glad we're doing it. It's a laugh. I enjoy it a lot. So there you go. Awesome. All right. Well, there you go. All lovely sentiments and things. We should probably call an end to this. But yeah, next episode's going to be coming out on. Let me get the old calendar up. It's going to be coming out on Saturday the 23rd, during which it will be, as I say, our 50th episode. So we really hope you guys can join us for that and enjoy it. We'll have some, hopefully, really great content during that. Look out for me and Joe playing each other on Tabletop Simulator as he puts up his free selected characters against Marnia's Calgar. That is not going into the podcast. That's going to be separate on our YouTube channel. So at some point on our social media, we'll say that exists, or if you follow us on YouTube, you'll find that for yourself. And beyond that, I can't think of anything else to say. Joe, have you got any, final thoughts for today?
No, I'm all good. I've enjoyed our time together.
Awesome. Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Toodle pip.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.